Chapter 2065. Can you get it to me? 2. It should be known that they had done this kind of thing many times in the past, but those people were much easier to deceive than this half-grown old man in front of them. As long as the Ning family was mentioned, almost everyone would choose to give up their own objects to avoid angering the Ning family. But this old man in front of them was obviously not afraid of this at all. For a moment, the four of them were extremely conflicted. However, they didn't know that the first elder really hoped that they would make a big deal out of this. Otherwise, they would only be more depressed. In fact, although the four of them always used the Ning family's banner to intimidate others, they were just paper tigers who were bluffing. In the past, it was their opponents who were afraid of the Ning family's power, and they would retreat after being intimidated by them. Therefore, they who had always been successful now really did not know how to deal with the dilemma in front of them, as well as this difficult old man. But if they were asked to give up, they would feel embarrassed. After all, the four of them had boasted in front of Juan. Breaking a woman's promise, was that still something a man should do? At the thought of this, the four of them looked at each other unwillingly. Then, one of them said fiercely, "Old man, you can't afford to offend our Ning family. You'd better not refuse a toast and drink a forfeit. Just obediently give up this house. It's not like we're not giving you money. With the money we've given you, your family can find a place to settle down in the city. Why do you have to live in the wilderness? So, while we still have some patience, quickly transfer this house to us. Don't make us rob you. That would be meaningless." His words were a little soft and hard. After all, they didn't want to fall out with this old man until the last moment. After hearing his words, the first elder couldn't help but think to himself, how could it be boring? If you have the ability, then snatch it. He couldn't wait for them to do something like robbing. That way, he would be able to show off in front of Old Man Ning. With this intention in mind, First Elder remained unmoved in front of the four of them. Lung Ruasha, the three humans, and the beast eavesdropped for a while in the dark before they walked over. "What's wrong? What happened?" Lung Ruashue played dumb. Her beautiful eyes swept across the four people of the Ning family, but her words were directed at the Great Elder. "They want to buy our house and your Totoro pet." The Great Elder's mouth twitched slightly. They had taken a fancy to his house and were rude to him. He could forgive them for Old Man Ning's sake, but they had provoked Song, the Totoro who refused to admit that he was a Totoro. These guys' good days were probably over. However, looking at Song's calm appearance, could it be that this was the calm before the storm? Although he hadn't been with Song for a long time, he had never thought that Song had a good temper. However, he couldn't understand Song's thoughts. He didn't know what terrifying things this calm fellow would do. They even dared to level the Divine Master's estate. So what couldn't the Ning family do? Ugh, God bless. I hope that Old Man Ning can protect the Ning family's main residence. He secretly prayed for the master of the Ning family in his heart, and then looked at the four people with some sympathy. He could already foresee their miserable future. At this moment, Lung Ruashue, who had pretended to have just heard the news, only replied with a soft, "Oh," and did not continue the conversation. Instantly, someone exploded in anger. Fuck, wasn't this pretty boy looking down on the Ning family? What was the meaning of a simple "oh"? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He simply shouted, "You guys listen up. We want this house. We also want this Totoro. You'll have to sell it even if you don't want to. That's right. If you don't want to sell it, we'll just have to rob you." Immediately, someone chimed in. Hearing this, Lung Ruakshu's face was filled with black lines as she rolled her eyes. Who the hell are these people? Originally, on the account of her godfather, she had wanted to let them live. Who knew that these people would actually be so reckless? If that's the case, then don't blame her for being impolite. However, before Lung Ruashue could react, Song said with an unhappy expression, "You guys stole my lines?" Yes, this was what I always said, and no one dared to say in front of it. Therefore, everything they were experiencing at this moment made it quite surprised. At the same time, it could not understand how that little guy of the Ning family could have such a superb descendant. Fortunately, these people were only from the side. If they were from the main family, it would definitely exterminate them, so as not to embarrass himself in the immortal realm. After hearing Song's words, the four people of the Ning family couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha. Is this your line? You're just a Totoro who doesn't even have the strength to trust a chicken, and you actually dare to say such big words. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? The four of them treated Song's words as a joke. However, Song wasn't angry and continued to say calmly, "You'll know if I'm boasting or not after you try. However, I'm too lazy to deal with you right now, so you'll be able to escape for the time being." Azure was very calm, but his words made the four people laugh even more wildly. She glanced at the four of them and smiled at Lung Ruashua. "Girl, I'm sleepy. Take me to sleep." After saying that, Cold completely ignored the four people who were laughing wildly and only looked at Evildoer provocatively. As expected, Evildoer was angered to death by Cold's words. He kept cursing in his heart. What did that guy say? Let's shwe, or bring it to sleep? He was simply dreaming. How could he allow such a thing to happen? As he thought of this, the evildoer rudely grabbed Song from Long Ruaksha's arms and threw him to the Great Elder. Then, he teleported and disappeared from his original spot. Seeing this, Song smiled nonchalantly and looked up at the Great Elder. "Little fellow, bring me back to my room to sleep." It was afraid that if it stayed here any longer, it would not be able to resist tearing these four ants in front of it into pieces. All right. Song's words caused a few drops of cold sweat to fall from the Great Elder's forehead. One had to know that he never thought that Song needed to sleep. However, since Song said so, he naturally had to cooperate. So, without thinking, he left the four people of the Ning family and directly disappeared with Song. Ugh! Seeing that he was the only one left, Chung-Woo was stunned for a moment before he left as well. Of course, the four people from the Ning family were ignored. He was completely ignored. This fact immediately made the four people extremely angry. Damn it! These things that didn't know what was good for them were really too infuriating. You're actually leaving us behind. Some people cursed at the injustice. The anger in their hearts was rising. More importantly, they couldn't understand how things had developed to this point. They wanted to buy a house, but the other party was not willing to sell it. Shouldn't they be in a deadlock and not give in? However, how did the Totoro make everyone disappear when it said it wanted to sleep? Chapter 2066. Can you give it to me? 3. This unreasonable fact made them extremely confused. Moreover, no matter how they threatened, bribed, and used both soft and hard tactics, not only did the other party not buy it, but he also had an indifferent look. This made them deeply feel as if they had punched cotton. This kind of feeling could really drive people crazy. And now, the four of them were so mad that they wanted to scratch the wall. If they were to just run around aimlessly without an audience or any reaction, what would they feel? It was really desolate no matter how he thought about it. The four of them were so angry that they stomped their feet, but they had no way to vent their anger. They could only roar at the sky a few times to vent their anger, then went back to their own rooms listlessly. This army is at a disadvantage. Did you? They were originally full of enthusiasm, but now they suffered a blow and had a sleepless night. After the Grand Elder carried Song back to his room, he immediately asked with a fawning smile, "Senior Song, I wonder how you plan to deal with those four?" He was simply too curious, and his heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. "They're just four little ants. I don't intend to teach them a lesson. If you have any ideas, go ahead, don't mind me. However, you have to bring out my share." Song Qing glanced at the Great Elder and said. Its meaning was also very obvious. It wanted the Great Elder to remember to count in his share when he dealt with those four people. When the Great Elder heard this, he immediately beamed with joy and explained, "Senior Song, don't worry. I will definitely not let them off. However, I still want to keep those people for the time being. They still have other uses. Do as you see fit. Don't make me do it, or no one will be able to bear the consequences." Azure said with a faint smile. The corner of the first elder's mouth involuntarily twitched when he heard this. These words were not false. Not many people could bear the consequences of Song's actions. Just think about how miserable the God Lord's manor had ended up. The next day, Ning Huan couldn't wait to find the four of them early in the morning to ask about the results. When she saw the four of them looking depressed and hesitating to say something, she knew that she had not succeeded. She was instantly enraged. How can you be so useless? You can't even handle such a small matter? Ning Huan looked at the four of them in disdain. We've talked to them, but they didn't agree to sell us the house and the Totoro. The four of them explained gloomily. Not selling? Then can't you think of a way? It's not like we've never done this before. Why can't we do it this time? Ning Huan roared in anger. After staying here for a night, she had changed her mind. She had not been too keen on owning this house. She had to get this house. And that cute Totoro, she was also determined to get it. Who asked her to completely fall in love with this place in just one night? Moreover, through the skylight of the house, she could clearly see the beauty of the starry sky at night. In short, she loved everything here so much that she could not let go. After staying here for a night, the desire to own this place had taken root in her heart and sprouted. It had grown into a towering tree overnight. Once such thoughts were formed, they could not be erased no matter what. Therefore, she had already secretly vowed in her heart that she would definitely have everything here. She had come to the four people excitedly to ask for the results, only to hear them tell her that they were not willing to sell. This news made her unable to conceal the anger in her heart. After venting all her anger on the four people in front of her, she still felt that it was not enough. After scolding the four people again, she turned around and left in anger. As they watched Ning Huan leave, the four of them became even more dispirited. Are we really that useless? Someone said, it should be AI. We can't even fulfill Wan Huan's simple request. We're really disappointing. Some people blamed themselves. At this time, the other two people stood up from their seats and walked out of the room without saying a word. The other two saw this and quickly followed. At the same time, Ning Huan, who had rushed out of the room in anger, went directly to Ning Xiao, asking him to help her get the house. However, after Ning Xiao heard Ning Huan's plan, he refused without thinking, causing Ning Huan to leave in a huff. After Ning Huan left, Ning Xiao couldn't help but sneer. She really didn't know what was good for her. How dare she try to get this house? He really didn't know if they were really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. Couldn't he tell that the identities of the people here were mysterious and that their strength wasn't low? In their territory, would they care about the threat of the Ning family? Suddenly, he came to a sudden realization. If Ning Huan had offended the other party and the other party killed her in a fit of anger, wouldn't they become fish on the other party's knife without the slightest ability to fight back? No. As soon as this thought appeared, Ning Xiao's heart trembled with fear, and then he chased after her. Ning Huan, who had left Ning Xiao's place, saw that Ning Xiao was not willing to help. After cursing Ning Xiao in her heart, she decided to go and find the other party herself. She did not believe that the other party would not give face to a beauty like her. After learning from the four of them that the half-grown old man was the owner of the house, she decided to meet the old man. It didn't take much effort for her to see the great elder and the white Totoro in the garden. At this moment, Tsang was bored and lazily lying on the stone table. The first elder in front of him sat on the stone chair and looked at him with a smile. Ning Huan's eyes immediately lit up when she saw this. That's great. He didn't expect to find two of them at once. Moreover, the Totoro's current lazy appearance was really too cute. Ning Huan's eyes were brimming with pink bubbles. It was usually difficult for women to reject such a cute little animal, and Ning Huan was no exception. Her desire to get Tsang also became stronger. She had decided, after she got this house, she would definitely make the other party give her this Totoro as a bonus. Let's do it this way. After making up her mind, she walked forward. Are you the owner of this house? Ning Huan's voice was gentle, and she asked very politely. Yes, I am. What business does young lady have? The great elder's eyelids didn't even close as he indifferently asked. In fact, he and Tsang had long noticed that someone was approaching, but they didn't take it seriously. I like this house very much, and I want to buy it. Ning Huan pretended to be shy and said softly. Her beautiful eyes were full of tears and gentleness as she floated towards the first elder. She was flirting with him. However, the great elder, who had his head lowered, did not notice this at all. He only replied indifferently, "I'm not selling." Song, who was still lying on the stone table, couldn't help but laugh in his heart. The beauty trap was here. AI. It seemed that it had lived for too long and was too bored. It was actually in the mood to watch a good show. Otherwise, it would not have let go of these eyesores. If it was in the past, it would have exterminated them long ago. Even their families would not be spared, but now, they were in a mood to watch a good show. Therefore, it simply closed its eyes and pretended to sleep. Ning Huan's anger rose again when she heard that she wasn't going to sell it. However, for the sake of the house and the adorable Totoro, she had to bear with it. After taking a deep breath, Ning Huan spoke again. "If you don't want to sell it, I won't force you. Then, can you get it to me?" Upon hearing this, the great elder raised his head in disbelief. His bright eyes stared at Ning Huan and sized her up. He couldn't help but think to himself, is there something wrong with this little girl from the Ning family? How could he be so narcissistic? Seeing that he wasn't willing to sell it, he actually asked him to give it away. What kind of logic was this? He immediately came to an important conclusion for Ning Huan. This woman was seriously ill. Ning Huan didn't know that the first elder thought she was sick, but when she saw the first elder staring at her, she thought that he had a good impression of her. She gathered her courage and said, "As long as you're willing to give me the house, it'll definitely repay you." How you plan to repay me? The first elder's curiosity was piqued when he heard Ning Huan's words. He had lived for so long and met many people and things, but this was the first time he had met a woman who said that she would repay him. This was too horrifying. He was a little frightened. As for Ning Huan, who was not aware of it, she lowered her head even more. From the corner of her eyes, she would steal glances at the first elder from time to time. Her eyes were covered by her long eyelashes, and her eyes kept rolling around. Her heart was full of schemes. Although the man in front of her looked a little old, he was not bad looking. So, Ning Huan felt that if she seduced him once, it wouldn't be too much of an injustice. She kept telling herself in her heart that everything was for the house, and the Totoro that was an addition to the house. Moreover, she felt that this wasn't really seducing him, but just using his beauty to put on an act. With that thought in mind, Ning Huan put on an expression of going all out. Then, she lowered her head even more and said in a low voice, "If you're willing to give me this house, I'm willing to repay you with my body." Shwa shwa. The first elder had just picked up the teacup on the stone table, but after hearing these words, he was so frightened that his hand trembled, and the teacup fell to the ground, splashing tea all over. What did you just say? The great elder's expression was a little unsightly, and his little heart was beating wildly in anger. In his heart, although the woman in front of him was a little annoying, she was still old man Ning's descendant. But now, the unfilial grandson of his good friend actually wanted to seduce him for a house. This was really... He was so angry that he didn't know what to do. Chapter 2067. Another incident. 1. The great elder was so angry that his entire body was trembling. However, in Ning Huan's eyes, this was seen as excitement. Instantly, a trace of pride flashed across Ning Huan's face. She knew that no man could reject her. Then, Ning Huan pointed at Song and continued, "You have to give me this Totoro as an extra. How about it? You didn't lose anything, did you?" She felt that the great elder had gained a great advantage. Of course, to what extent she could devote her body to him. That would depend on whether the old man in front of her would come up with something. Extra head. Extra head. When Azure heard these two words, he was so angry that all the hairs on his body stood up. Fuck. It was the spirit of the god-protecting pagoda, the powerful song, but it was just an addition to the house. This was really infuriating. Thinking of this, Song squinted his dark eyes that were like star diamonds and sized up Ning Huan with a faint smile. Where should I start? Azure thought to himself. The first elder, who heard Ning Huan's bold and confident words again, was also frightened. Cold sweat broke out all over his body. Oh my god, what was he supposed to do? Song Ba was probably going to get angry, right? The great elder sneaked a glance at Song, only to realize that Song was only sizing up Ninghuan. Other than that, he did not have much of a reaction. However, the more this was the case, the more worried he was. Boss, please don't blame him for this. Sob. The great elder felt that his idea was very bad. That damn Ninghuan. Not only did she have to give her body to this house, she even wanted Song to be her bonus. Was she worthy? Even if you want to die, you shouldn't do this. First Elder was filled with hatred, but what he was most afraid of was that Ninghuan's words and actions would implicate him. However, the great elder saw that Song had not taken any action yet, so he could only endure it. At this moment, bang, bang, bang. After a few loud bangs, four balls rolled into the garden and reached the first elder's feet. The first elder's attention was distracted for a moment, and then he saw four men stand up from the ground. Motherfucker, who kicked this young master? After one of them stood up, he immediately glared at the first elder and roared. Then he looked down and saw the first elder sitting on the stone chair. He was instantly enraged and shouted, "Is this your doing, old man?" The person who spoke was furious. Fuck, this old thing dared to snatch their woman? Why didn't he look at his own status? This was preposterous. Therefore, he immediately accused First Elder. The First Elder, who originally did not want to pay attention to these people, was stunned when he heard this. Then, he said in a speechless manner, "I haven't moved since I sat here. How would I have the time to kick you? Who knows which corner you're hiding in?" You can't accuse people like this. Although the great elder was a little angry, his tone was still calm and steady. However, in the ears of the four people, this calm tone was a sign of guilt and fear. If it wasn't you, then it must have been your subordinate. Another person said with certainty, "Oh, really? May I ask why they are doing this?" The great elder said with a smile that was not a smile. Why couldn't some people use their brains before they spoke or did things? Did he really think that he had no temper? Yes, the great elder's temper was usually very good. Moreover, even if he was angry, he would not show it on his face. In addition, these people were from the Ning family, so he did not want to embarrass them too much. Unfortunately, some people did not know how to appreciate it. Instead, they thought that they were afraid of them. This fact made the great elder laugh. Who knows? I'll have to ask you, you old pervert. The person who spoke first said angrily, "Old pervert? Was he talking about him? When did he become an old pervert?" The great elder was very depressed. The old man from the Ning family had so many women, but no one dared to call him an old pervert. She had always been clean and honest, but now she had become an old pervert. Wasn't this bullying? Did he really look that easy to bully? The great elder once again began to doubt if his temper was too good. Just as he was about to show his strength to these people and let them know how powerful he was, Song's eyes swept over him, and the great elder suppressed his anger. Woo, could it be that Azure still hasn't played enough? The answer was of course yes. Song was extremely bored and was worried about not having any toys. In the end, these few idiots came to his door, so Song naturally didn't want to let them go. Moreover, she also wanted them to experience the feeling of falling from heaven to hell. Don't look at how aggressive they are now and how powerful they seem. In a while, I will let them know what is called extreme joy begets sorrow. With such a thought, Song calmly laid on the stone table, squinting his eyes from time to time to size up the people in front of him, but he didn't say anything. Seeing it like this, the great elder simply shut his mouth. These people could say whatever they wanted to say, and he pretended not to hear them. Seeing them like this, the four of them became even angrier. Just as they were about to start scolding, they heard Ning Huan's displeased face as she frowned and questioned, "What are you guys doing here? Leave now, I don't want to see you." Ning Huan was extremely angry. Weren't these people here to ruin things? They had been doing well and were about to succeed, but these idiots had suddenly come. Now, all her previous efforts had been in vain. When she thought of this, she gritted her teeth in hatred. However, it was a good thing that First Elder and Song didn't know what Ning Huan was thinking. Otherwise, they would definitely ask, Miss Ning, where did you get your confidence from? When the four of them heard Ning Huan's words, they felt extremely aggrieved and unwilling. They said in unison, Huan Huan, we're doing this for you. This old thing doesn't look like a good person, and he's not worthy of you. Upon hearing this, Ning Huan immediately rebuked, all of you shut up. I don't need you guys to meddle in my business. Then, she turned to the first elder and said apologetically, I'm really sorry. They don't know how to talk. Please don't bother with them. Ning Huan's lungs were about to explode from anger. She spoke apologetically to the first elder in a gentle voice, but her beautiful eyes were secretly staring at the four people who were causing trouble, her gaze containing a warning. Seeing this, the four of them were all like aggrieved little wives, not daring to say a word. Ning Huan tried her best to coax the great elder, but after a few words and a wink, she was interrupted by the great elder impatiently. All right, you don't have to say anything. I still have the same words. I'm not selling this house. After the great elder finished speaking, he picked up Tsang and left. As she watched the first elder leave, the anger in Ning Huan's heart exploded uncontrollably. She glared at the four people who were an eyesore and scolded, You bunch of trash. It's fine if you can't do it on your own, but you actually came to disturb my business. You guys are really. The more Ning Huan thought about it, the angrier she became. In the end, she simply started to punch and kick the four people. However, Ning Huan's strength was low, so her fancy punches and kicks were no different from flirting in the eyes of the four people. Therefore, the four people who were hit not only were not angry, but they even put their faces in front of Ning Huan and smiled charmingly. Huan Huan, let's fight. Rest for a while if you're tired. Don't hurt your hand. Chapter 2068. Another incident, too. This is what you asked for. The furious Ning Huan laughed smugly. This was a most loyal dog by her side. He was so willing to be beaten. The performance of these four people completely satisfied Ning Huan's vanity. Then a pa sound was heard. Pa! The sound of a slap rang out in the garden that was supposed to be quiet. At this moment, Cheng Wu, who had been hiding in a corner of the garden, patted the shoulder of the man beside him and said with a faint smile, Are these the descendants of your Ning family? That's really amazing. Hearing this, Ning Xiao suddenly felt his face burn, wishing there was a hole in the ground for him to crawl into. After a long while, he mumbled in a low voice, How can they be worthy of being my Ning family? You don't have the final say in this matter. Quickly take them away. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that they'll be able to go to the Ning family's divine realm in full force. Cheng Wu said with a faint smile. You, how did you know we were going to the Ning family's god realm? Cheng Wu's words shocked Ning Xiao. She couldn't help but think to herself, he didn't say that he wanted to return to the Ning clan's divine realm, right? Or did he just say that he didn't remember? If you don't want to go to the Ning family's domain, do you want to go to the Yao family's domain? Cheng Wu glanced at Ning Xiao as if he was looking at an idiot. This road only led to two directions. One was the Ning clan, and the other was the Yao clan. They were the same as him, coming from the direction of the Yao clan's divine realm. Naturally, they were going to the Ning clan's divine realm as well. Moreover, they were members of the Ning clan. Where else could they go if not the Ning clan? The Yao family's divine realm would definitely not welcome them. We're going back to the Ning clan's divine realm. Ning Xiao smiled awkwardly, feeling depressed. He also felt that he had asked a very stupid question. Ever since he started traveling with these people, his intelligence had also dropped. Then quickly take them away. If they continue to stay here, I can't guarantee that they will still have their heads and feet. Cheng Wu urged once again. His words were a little bloody, causing Ning Xiao to shiver uncontrollably. She hurriedly nodded her head. Well, leave now. After saying that, Ning Xiao immediately walked out from the shadows and summoned his spirit beast. It cooperated with him and led Ning Huan and the other four out of the garden and left the house without looking back. After sensing that they had left, Cheng Wu immediately went to the living room where Leng Ruoxue and the rest were waiting for him. The moment he entered the living room, Cheng Wu could not help but ask, Miss, are we just going to let them go? He couldn't figure it out. no matter how much he thought about it. Logically speaking, if she had met such a person in the past, Miss should have taught him a lesson. Why was he so gentle this time? He could not understand. What else? Don't tell me you're going to treat them to breakfast? Lung Ruoxua laughed and teased. I didn't mean it that way. Cheng Wu started sweating. He hated those people so much. Why would he treat them to breakfast? Wasn't that just daydreaming? Little brat. After all, they are part of the Ning family, so we have to give face to Old Man Ning. If we want to deal with them, Old Man Ning has to come personally. At this moment, the first elder kindly explained. He and Lung Ruoxua had the same thought. Both of them were afraid that the old man would not be easy to coax. With this matter, they could give the old man a way out and make him embarrassed to continue being angry at them. Otherwise, how could those people leave this place so easily? Hearing the first elder's explanation, Cheng Wu Mauser was relieved. He had forgotten about Master Ning and smiled embarrassedly. Then, he continued to ask, "Those people have already left. When are we leaving?" "In an hour," Lung Ruoxua said, after some thought. She had deliberately delayed their departure by an hour so that she would not bump into them again. Otherwise, if something were to happen again, it would not end well. However, while wishes were beautiful, reality was cruel. After Lung Ruoxua and the rest continued on their journey, they arrived at the Ning clan's divine territory in just half a day. They found an inn to stay in at the outskirts of the Ning clan's divine territory and planned to continue their journey the next day. In the Ning family's divine realm, there were teleportation formations between cities. Therefore, they would be able to reach the Ning family's main city tomorrow. After dinner, the 4 humans and 1 beast each returned to their own rooms. However, the moment they entered their rooms, they all fainted at the same time. Song, who had followed Lung Ruoxua and the demon into the same room, saw this and his ink-black eyes flickered. His eyes rolled back, and with a kick of his forelegs, he fell into Lung Ruoxua's arms. Following that, a few black-robed men sneaked into their room and tied up the 4 men and 1 beast before taking them away. When they woke up, Lung Ruoxua and the rest pretended to be surprised to find that they were locked in a dark room. Other than their sparkling eyes, it was pitch black in front of them. "Miss, we're too lousy at pretending to faint. However, I didn't expect the other party to fall for it." Cheng Wu transmitted his voice to the rest of them with a depressed look. In fact, when they were having dinner, they found out that someone had added something to the food. In order to make the other party believe that they had really eaten the food, Song used a smokescreen. Then, they returned to their rooms as planned and fainted at the right time, which led to this scene. Yup. A certain beast even shamelessly fainted in Shui Er's arms. The demon gritted his teeth in hatred. At that time, he really wanted to throw that shameless, stinky beast out. After hearing evildoer's voice transmission, not only was Azure not angry, but he also laughed complacently. Seeing his smug look, evildoer's anger grew even more. However, when Song saw this, he pretended to be afraid and shrank into Lung Ruoxua's arms even more. He even nudged Lung Ruoxua's soft and full chest without a sound, looking at her with his demon-like eyes spewing fire. Damn it! If this wasn't the immortal realm, he would definitely cut this detestable fellow into 8 pieces to vent the hatred in his heart. This shameless beast actually relied on his small and cute size to lie in Shui Er's arms all day long. The more the evildoer thought about it, the angrier he became. The gaze he used to look at Song became more and more unfriendly, and the cold air from his body was released as if it was free. It scared the first elder and Cheng Wu so much that they could not help but move to the side. Even so, their little hearts were trembling nonstop. AI. There were too many people he couldn't afford to offend these days. The 2 of them thought to themselves with lingering fear. When Lung Ruoxua saw this scene, she was about to console the evildoer when the door to their room was suddenly opened. A blinding light was reflected into the room. The few of them subconsciously looked up at the 4 men and 1 woman standing at the door with a smug expression. A deep sense of helplessness welled up in their hearts. It seemed that it was hard to be a good person. They let these 5 guys leave unscathed, but who knew that not only did they not appreciate it, but they also did such a thing to them. They were truly helpless. Chapter 2069, Another Incident 3, Let's Make a Deal. Ning Huan sized up the 4 people and 1 beast in front of her and said with a faint smile. Her tone was also full of pride. What deal? If you still intend to devote yourself to me, I advise you to give up on that idea. I'm really not interested in you. The first elder feigned ignorance and said with a look of disdain. Lung Ruoxue and the rest were laughing in their hearts, but Ning Huan's expression was not as pleasant. Damn old man, who wants to devote myself to you? Why didn't he take a look at himself? Are you worthy of me? When Ning Huan heard the first elder's words, she retorted without holding back. She was furious because in her heart, she was the only one who could despise others, and she would never allow others to despise her. Therefore, the first elder had stepped on her reverse scale, coupled with the fact that she had said that she would devote her life to him. The anger in her heart was so strong that it was almost impossible to hide it. As soon as she finished her sentence, the other 4 people immediately echoed. That's right. Why don't you look at your own status? Do you think you're worthy of the young lady of our Ning family, an old man? Besides, you're all our prisoners now, yet you still dare to talk so big. I think you're really tired of living. My identity? Oh, that's right. She, the young lady of the Ning family, really isn't worthy of my status. Moreover, so what if I'm a prisoner? We're not tired of living. On the contrary, we're very happy to be prisoners. The first elder was neither angry nor annoyed. Instead, he smiled and said, You old fart. You've become our prisoner, yet you still dare to talk back to us. I think you've really lived long enough. One of them glared at Ning Huan, whose face had turned black. After hearing the first elder's words, he immediately roared in anger. However, Lung Ruoxue and the rest did not take him seriously. Lung Ruoxue said impatiently, You drugged us and brought us here. What is your purpose? Don't tell me you're just here to bicker with us? In other words, he wanted them to quickly state their plans and stop wasting time. When Ning Huan heard this, she said very directly, Hand over the house and the Totoro, and he'll let you go. She was determined to get these 2 things. Originally, after finding an excuse to separate from Ning Xiao, she wanted to take the other 4 people back and seize the house. But she didn't expect to meet these people on the way. Suddenly, Ning Huan's mood was great. This would save her a lot of trouble. The only regret was that they would not carry the house with them. Ning Huan thought to herself. At this moment, she still did not know that the house was a spatial-type divine artifact. Furthermore, even though she said that she would let these people go, in reality, she would never let Lung Ruoxue and the others go. Otherwise, wouldn't that be akin to letting a tiger return to its mountain? Of course, she wouldn't show such thoughts. However, Lung Ruoxue was well aware of her thoughts. After a faint smile, Lung Ruoxue said, I'm sorry, Miss Ning, I'm afraid you've miscalculated. We won't give you either of the 2 items you mentioned. What did you just say? When Ning Huan heard this, she was so angry that her eyes turned round. The aura from her body exploded out. However, her cultivation as a god-tier master was nothing in the eyes of Lung Ruoxue, the 4 humans, and the beast. Following that, he heard Lung Ruoxue's emotionless voice. I originally wanted to let you guys off, but who knew that you guys wouldn't appreciate it? Since that's the case, don't blame me for not giving you any face. Cheng Wu, make your move. After Lung Ruoxue had given her orders, Cheng Wu was like a shooting star as he pounced towards Ning Huan and the other 4. He was so fast that they did not even have time to react. In the blink of an eye, a black rope in Cheng Wu's hands had tied them up tightly. The rope was rather sturdy and extremely elastic. No matter how they struggled, they could not break free. When the 5 of them saw this, their eyes widened in disbelief and they cried out in shock. How is this possible? Aren't you all tied up? You want to tie us up with such an ordinary rope? Aren't you guys underestimating us too much? Cheng Wu said sarcastically. This is impossible. This is impossible. When Ning Huan heard Cheng Wu's words, she could not accept this fact. How did the situation change in the blink of an eye? The prisoner who was supposed to be tied up was now standing in front of them with a smile, and they had become the prisoner. Ning Huan couldn't take such a quick change. More importantly, she couldn't understand why these people were so weak. But now they were being held back. Could it be that they had been deceived? At the thought of this, Ning Huan's heart trembled, and then she was furious. How dare you hide your strength to deceive us? Ning Huan flew into a rage out of humiliation. When she heard Ning Xiao call the old man senior and asked them to do the same, she didn't think much of it. She thought that Ning Xiao was only being polite because she wanted to stay with him. Who knew that Ning Xiao, that damn guy, actually meant it? However, Ning Xiao had not told him about this. This fact made her hate Ning Xiao as well. However, when Lung Ruoxue heard Ning Huan's words, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who was this person? He was the one who had neglected their strength, and now he was blaming them. No wonder people often say that when the forest is big, there will be all kinds of birds. Following that, Lung Ruoxue continued, "We've never hidden our strength. It's your own eyes that are not good enough. Coupled with your identity as a member of the Ning family, you didn't put us in your eyes at all. Moreover, even if you knew that we were stronger than you, wouldn't you have attacked us because you were conceited?" She would never believe this, even if she was beaten to death. Although these people's strength wasn't good, with the identity of the Ning family, they probably wouldn't even put an ordinary reverent god in their eyes, let alone these unknown people. When Ning Huan and the rest heard Lung Ruoxue's mocking tone, they were silent for a moment. However, Ning Huan seemed to have gained some confidence and shouted out in a warning tone, "You know we're from a Ning family, and you still dare to treat us like this? Are you looking to die? Quickly release us and compensate me with that house and this Totoro. When this young lattice mood is good, perhaps I will be merciful and let you live. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." When Ning Huan said this, it was Lung Ruoxue, and the rest turned to be silent. Cheng Wu cast a sympathetic glance at Ning Huan, who was obviously out of her mind. He smiled evilly and replied, "Who said that we have to let you go just because you're from the Ning family? I'm telling you, your Ning family's identity doesn't work in front of us. Humph. If you didn't mention the Ning family, we might have let you go. Since you've mentioned that you're a member of the Ning family, then if we don't teach you a lesson on behalf of your Ning family's old ancestor, you'll feel a bit sorry for him." After he finished speaking, Cheng Wu rudely pulled one end of the rope and pulled the 5 people who were tied together into a dark corner of the house. What followed was the sound of punches and kicks, accompanied by waves of painful wails of both men and women. "Arg! Damn it! I won't let you off. Stop fighting. Don't hit me. Ancestor, we were wrong." Screams and cries of apology continued to intertwine. Some people even called him Ancestor Cheng Wu. However, Cheng Wu wasn't happy when he heard this and shouted back, "You've forgotten your roots and don't even recognize your own ancestors. What's the use of having you in the Ning family?" After the roar, the sound of fists hitting flesh was even louder. "Girl, I'm going to join in the fun too." At this moment, Tsang's claws were itching from the provocation. After he greeted Lung Ruoxue, he was like a bolt of lightning as he quickly ran to the corner of the room. Last time, he had let them escape. This time, no matter what, he would not let them off. He must let them know what it meant to be too happy to turn sad. Following that, even more tragic cries of pain and wails resounded through the clouds. After a long time, by the time Cheng Wu dragged the 5 people back to Lung Ruoxue and the others, they could no longer see the 5 people's faces. However, the 5 people were obviously still alive, but they were on the verge of death. The 5 of them were covered in blood, and their bodies and faces were covered in deep claw marks. Needless to say, this was definitely Tsang's doing. The green and purple marks on their bodies were probably Cheng Wu's doing. Seeing their incomparably miserable appearance, the great elder couldn't help but shiver. Oh my God, so brutal, so bloody. These people were really pitiful. The great elder's heart was filled with deep sympathy for them. However, they deserved it. They had clearly been given a chance, but they didn't know how to cherish it. Now, they had even delivered themselves to the door. This time, he didn't want to give them any more chances, even if it was for the face of Old Man Ning. After looking at the 5 people who were half dead and on the verge of death, the great elder suggested, "Shue, let's hurry on our way." Looking at Shue Er's expression, it was obvious that she had no intention of treating these people. Therefore, he was afraid that these people would not live to see tomorrow's sunrise. If these 5 people were to die in their hands, they would not be able to explain themselves. At that time, even if they were right, they would become unreasonable. Naturally, he did not want to see the fruits of Chung Wu and Sang's hard work go to waste. Yes, after listening to the first elder's suggestion, Lung Ruoxue nodded. It was time to set off. She had planned to stay for a night and did not want to leave in a hurry. However, it seemed like it was better for her to meet her godfather as soon as possible. Chapter 2070, The Idol Effect. 1. After making their decision, the few of them traveled through the night. After a few rounds of teleportation, they finally arrived at the Ning clan's main city in the early morning. Ning Huan and the rest were half-dragged on the ground by Chung Wu with ropes. Along the way, they left trails of blood on the streets of the city. They looked more and more pathetic and were basically on their last breath. When he saw Ning Huan and the rest, the first elder expressed his deep sympathy for them. However, it was only limited to sympathy. He had no intention of helping them at all. Who asked him to be a famous weapon forging master who did not know how to refine pills? The great elder thought to himself in a calm and reasonable manner. After entering the Ning family's main city, they first went to Ning Hai's home. He planned to rest there for a while before going to the Ning family's main residence. When Ning Hai saw a man calling him Brother Ning and calling himself Lung Ruoxue, he was in a mess. However, it was a good thing that his mental endurance was quite strong, and he also recognized evildoers, so he was only stunned for a moment and quickly returned to normal. However, his face still looked a little unnatural. It could also be said that he wasn't used to it. Sitting in the living room and looking at the curiosity on Ning Hai's face, Lung Ruoxue was helpless. After a simple explanation to Ning Hai showed great interest in Lung Ruoxue's gender change. However, Lung Ruoxue's simple words immediately made Ning Hai give up on the idea. Lung Ruoxue had asked if Big Brother Ning wanted to try as well. When Ning Hai heard this, he shivered and quickly shook his head like a rattle. There was a look of shock on his face. He was also a little afraid that Lung Ruoxue had really turned him into a woman, so he quickly changed the topic. "Shue, you're here to see our ancestor, right?" After asking, Ning Hai realized that he seemed to have asked a stupid question. Moreover, calling a man Shue also made him feel very awkward. "Yes." Lung Ruoxue nodded. "Shue, I don't know why, but our ancestor has been in a bad mood recently, so the entire Ning family is in deep trouble. We have to be careful every time we go to the main house. Now that you're here, you have to think of a way to please our ancestor." Ning Hai said with anticipation. "I will." Lung Ruoxue promised with a faint smile. Of course, she knew why Godfather was in a bad mood, because she was the main culprit behind it. However, looking at Brother Ning's expression, she didn't dare to say anything. Otherwise, wouldn't the Ning family be so angry that they would eat her up? That's good. After hearing Lung Ruoxue's promise, Ning Hai was relieved. Then, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "Who are those guys outside?" He was also a member of the Ning family. "We met on the road." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. "Arg, what did they do to you?" When Ning Hai heard that those bloody guys were also from the Ning family, he was shocked. He didn't know how those unlucky guys had offended Shue, but he believed that Shue wouldn't do that to them for no reason. They wanted to rob us and kill us. However, we almost killed them. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. Even though she only said a few words, how could Ning Hai not understand? However, he did not expect those people to be so bold. They dared to rob Shue, and the others, and even wanted to kill them to silence them. This was really too. He couldn't even see through Shue's strength now. So how did those people dare to make a move? He couldn't figure out. However, After Ning Hai heard this, he still said, "Oh, they deserve it." Then he reminded her, "This is the Ning family's territory after all. Even if they do something wrong and anger you, the Ning family will speak up for them. So you must think of a countermeasure in advance. Don't be passive. I know, since I dare to do this to those people, I naturally have full confidence." Lung Ruoxue said confidently. If it wasn't for her godfather's sake, she wouldn't have kept these people around. As for the rest of the Ning family, whether they would give them face or not would depend on her mood. In short, it was best for some blind people not to provoke her on their own initiative. Otherwise, they would have to bear the consequences. "Then I'm relieved," Ning Hai said with a smile. In fact, he also felt that he was being a little naggy. How could Shui not handle this matter well? Thinking of this, he felt a little embarrassed. After arranging rooms for Lung Ruoxue and the others, he went straight to the Ning family's main residence. At this time, the Ning family's main residence was immersed in a cold current. Ning Hai walked on the small path of the main residence, feeling depressed. The main purpose of his visit this time was to see the second elder. The second elder saw Ning Hai in his study room and asked him directly, "What's wrong? Is there something you need?" This kid wouldn't come to the temple without a reason. When he had nothing to do, he would never step into the main residence. Even when he wanted to arrange for him to enter seclusion in the main residence, he had been refused by this guy. Thinking of this, he was full of anger. It must be known that for many people in the Ning family, this was a good thing that they could only dream of, but this stinky brat actually did not cherish it. Hearing the anger in the second elder's words, Ning Hai said directly, "Shui and the others are here." "Lung Ruoxue? Where is she?" Hearing this, the second elder immediately stood up from his chair and looked at Ning Hai excitedly, his eyes burning. He's in my house." Seeing the second elder's murderous look, Ning Hai doubted whether he had made the right decision to come here. However, the second elder should be on Shui side, so he felt that he should tell the second elder about the matter first, in case they were not prepared. "Why is he in your house? Just let them come to the main residence." The second elder said somewhat anxiously. That little ancestor had finally come. If she had not come, he might have had to disobey the orders of the family head and directly go to the door to find her. "They came this morning and are now resting," Ning Hai said calmly. When the second elder heard Ning Hai's words, his eyes widened and he was secretly annoyed. Still resting? That little girl had angered the master of the family and caused the Ning family to be in deep waters. It was fine if she didn't come earlier to pacify them, but now that she had come to the Ning family's divine realm, she actually didn't come directly to the main residence. This fact made him feel very suffocated and panicked. Although he really wanted to rush to Ning Hai's house immediately and have a good talk with that little girl, once he thought about how sharp-tongued Lung Ruoxue was, he gave up and suppressed his anger as he asked, "When does that girl plan to visit?" "Once they've rested enough, they should be coming." "But second elder, you'd better be mentally prepared, because the Ning family has provoked them." Ning Hai said it very implicitly, but the second elder was anxious when he heard it. "What's going on? Who would dare to provoke that little girl?" The second elder heard Ning Hai's words and asked in surprise. But at this time, he also understood that Ning Hai came mainly to tell him this. It seemed that he didn't dote on this kid for nothing. He knew to inform him first when there was an important matter. That's right, he was quite satisfied with Ning Hai's actions. Chapter 2071, The Idol Effect, 2. The leader is a woman called Ning Huan. There are 4 men and 1 woman. Ning Hai said, "Ning Huan? I've never heard of it. It's a branch family." The second elder asked calmly. After he finished speaking, his face revealed a look of relief. It was just a branch family, so it didn't matter. "Yes." Ning Hai repeated what he knew so that the second elder would have an idea. "I understand. Go back and tell that little girl to come to the main residence immediately after they've rested enough." The second elder nodded and reminded him. "All right, yes," Ning Hai replied. After saying all this, he turned and left the main house. After Ning Hai left, the second elder immediately went to the forbidden area in the back mountain. When he saw the family head, he immediately told the news of Lung Ruoxu's arrival to his old grandmadam. However, when he saw that the old grandmadam did not have any reaction, he could not help but be a little dumbfounded. It shouldn't be like this, right? The second elder knew very well that although the family head had always said that he didn't want to see that stinky girl, in reality, he had always been hoping that the girl would come and coax him. Why was it that now that he knew that she had come, he was actually indifferent and didn't have much of a reaction? This wasn't normal. The second elder couldn't help but wonder in his heart. After thinking for a long time, he still couldn't understand why his ancestor's reaction was so calm. This didn't match the plot he had thought of in advance. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but remind her, "Master, that little girl Shui is here. Let them come. Why didn't you come in yourself? Do you want me to go to the main entrance to welcome her?" The master of the Ning family said unhappily. In fact, he had been looking forward to it for a long time, but he had been angry and had no way out, so he really couldn't bring himself to go and see that stinky girl. Moreover, he couldn't give that girl a chance to take advantage of him. If he gave in this time, what if she kept hiding things from him in the future? He couldn't lay down this foundation. The master of the Ning family had a good plan in his heart, but when he heard the second elder say that the other party had not come yet, his calm face showed signs of cracking. He was so angry that he stood up from his chair and shouted at the second elder with a dark face. "What are you saying to me if you didn't come? Did she just want to anger him to death? Wretched girl. Stinky girl. Why didn't he come to see him immediately after coming to the Ning family's divine realm? What was he dawdling about for?" The master of the Ning family secretly sighed, the resentment in his heart growing a lot, and the chill in his body also caused the surrounding temperature to drop abruptly. The second elder felt the cold temperature and his body trembled. Then, in one breath, he repeated the reason why Lung Ruoxue did not come to the main residence. At least, he felt that the girl did not come to the main residence immediately because of this matter. After hearing this, the master of the Ning family became even angrier and directly ordered the second elder, "Just kick Ning Huan out of the Ning family. We don't have such an embarrassing descendant. You bastard." The master of the Ning family was furious. That stinky girl had finally come, but there was still a blind Ning family member making trouble. Wasn't this clearly trying to make him passive? This fact had also determined that Ning Huan and the others would not have a good ending. Even though the second elder had already predicted the fate of Ning Huan and the rest, he still could not help but ask after his patriarch had given his instructions. Only drive them out of the Ning family? Wouldn't that be too easy on them? And expel them from the Ning family and let that stinky girl deal with them. In addition, you must warn the Ning family members not to always cause trouble for me. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences and be expelled from the Ning family. The master of the Ning family said very seriously. In fact, he wouldn't be so angry if the people of the Ning family had offended someone else, but who asked them to offend that girl. Based on his understanding of that girl, if he dared to be biased towards his own descendant, she would definitely not acknowledge him as her godfather in the future. Therefore, he naturally had to stand on his precious goddaughter's side without any principles. In any case, there were many people in the Ning family. One more didn't matter, and one less didn't matter. If some clansmen said he was biased, he didn't care. He was biased, so what? "Master, he'll handle it immediately." Seeing that the family head had finished giving orders, the second elder immediately said. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left the forbidden area in the back mountain without looking back. As he walked, he couldn't help but tremble and keep on sucking in his stomach. The Ning family's forbidden area was really getting colder and colder. However, if that girl came, the temperature would probably increase. The second elder returned to the main courtyard and gathered all the elders at home for a short meeting. After explaining the situation to the elders, he sent someone to Ning Hai's house and reminded Ning Hai to let Lung Ruoxue and the others come to the main residence as soon as possible. The elders of the Ning family were waiting for Lung Ruoxue and the others at home. However, after waiting for an entire morning, they did not see any sign of them. Suddenly, The elders could not sit still. In the meeting hall, the second elder sat in his seat with a frown, not saying a word. The other elders were whispering to each other. Finally, an elder said, "Second elder, Lung Ruoshue is not here yet. I'm afraid the family head is getting anxious from waiting, right? Why don't we go and personally invite him? For the sake of the master, for the sake of the gloomy atmosphere in the Ning family." The elder who spoke felt that it was better to quickly invite Lung Ruoshue and the others to the main residence. Otherwise, his own old grandmadam would probably fly into a rage again. That girl has her own ideas. If she doesn't take the initiative to come, it's useless even if we invite her. The second elder thought for a moment and said, after dealing with Lung Ruoshue for so long, he believed that he more or less understood Lung Ruoshue's way of doing things. That girl had not come to visit yet, so she was probably still angry. Thinking of this, the second elder had a headache. The master was angry, and so was that girl. How could they let the people stuck in the middle live? One had to know that they were living in deep waters and suffering every day. They were so worried that they were about to cry. Unfortunately, they could not command either of these two people. Sigh. The second elder was depressed. But if we take the initiative to invite them, it will show our sincerity, right? The elder said. The second elder thought about it and felt that what she said was right. Who cared if that girl was angry or not? They couldn't lose a piece of meat on their trip. Maybe they could also ask that girl's opinion. Moreover, if that girl saw them go, she might be too embarrassed to not come again. With this thought in mind, the second elder immediately made a decision to invite everyone. This way, he would be more sincere. Then, the Ning family elders, led by the second elder, went straight to Ning Hai's house. When Ning Hai saw such a lineup, his eyes almost fell out. Oh my God, why are there so many elders? With so many of them, their family would be frightened. Ning Hai thought this way and simply blocked the door without a sound. He didn't ask them why they were here, nor did he invite them in. Seeing this, the second elder couldn't help but pat Ning Hai's head and scolded him with a smile. "Aren't you going to invite us in to sit? What are you doing?" He naturally thought that Ning Hai was scared. Who would have thought that Ning Hai didn't want to invite them in? If they knew what Ning Hai was thinking, they would probably cry. Chapter 2072, The Idol Effect 3. Please come in, elders. Ning Hai was helpless. It seemed that he couldn't stop these people. At this moment, he was really regretful. Why did he run to the main residence to tell the second elder that Shue was here? Wasn't this just looking for trouble? However, it was too late to regret now. He summoned the elders into the living room. Ning Hai prepared tea and snacks for them, and then he hurried to comfort the panicked family. The elders of the Ning family sat in the living room for a long time. Not only did they not see Lung Ruoshue, but they also did not see Ning Hai for a long time. This fact made everyone extremely depressed. Sobs. Why were they so unpopular? Ning Hai finally remembered them when it was nighttime. When they came to the living room again, Ning Hai said with an apologetic face, "Fellow elders, I'm sorry. I had some matters to attend to and had to leave." He went out. Hearing this explanation, the elders were completely depressed. They came to the house without a master chat with, but the master even left them in the living room and went out to do business. What the hell is this? The resentful eyes of the elders made Ning Hai feel guilty. In fact, he didn't go out at all. However, he didn't know what to talk to these elders about, so he had to lock himself in his room. More importantly, Shue and the others had not come out of their room. He was afraid that the elders would ask him to rush them, so he had to leave them in the living room. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, he knew that he couldn't continue to sleep, so he reluctantly came out of the room. Shue and the others haven't rested well. The second elder didn't think that Ning Hai was hiding from them. He thought that he really had something to do. So, after a little depression, he didn't care anymore. Then he asked about the thing he was most concerned about. It should be, they haven't come out since they entered the room. Ning Hai said honestly, "Ning Hai, then can you help us invite her? We've been waiting for her for a long time." As expected, an elder made this request. Ning Hai heard this and said with an embarrassed expression, Elders, it's not that I don't want to help you get Shwe out, but I can't do anything. Shwe doesn't like people disturbing her when she's resting. If you insist on me waking her up, she'll vent her anger on you and even decide not to go to the main residence. Wouldn't that be more of a loss than gain? Hearing this, all the elders were silent. That's right. That girl who didn't play by the rules. Could she really do such a thing? All the elders were shocked. It seemed like they could only wait. Let's just wait. The second elder decided after some thought. Hearing the second elder's words, Ning Hai's hanging heart was finally put at ease. Right at this time, a slightly mocking voice sounded in everyone's ears. There's no point in you waiting. Go back quickly. Hearing this, everyone immediately looked around, but they couldn't find the owner of the voice. Who's talking? The second elder couldn't help but ask. The person had come silently, and they didn't even notice it. This fact made the second elder extremely shocked. His heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down at all. It's this grandpa who's talking. Below. Hearing the voice, the second elder looked over and found that a Totoro with snow-white fur had appeared in the living room. The Totoro was small and exquisite, and its fur was elegant and luxurious. At this moment, the Totoro was looking at everyone present with disdain. Totoro. The second elder was shocked. Recently, the most famous incident in the divine realm was the destruction of the God Lord's estate by Totoro. Although the people in the God Lord's estate had tried their best to keep this news a secret, it still spread uncontrollably throughout the entire divine realm. It was said that the Totoro was as white as snow and was exceptionally beautiful. Could this Totoro be that one? Although the second elder was very suspicious of this, he was 80 to 90% sure that this Totoro was the legendary one, since it could come to them without alerting anyone. At the thought of this, a sea of fire immediately ignited in his heart, and his gaze towards Tsang became more and more fervent. Excuse me, are you the Totoro that destroyed the Divine Master's residence? The second elder hesitated for a long time, but in the end, he couldn't win against the curiosity of the little person and asked, Old man, although your strength isn't that great, you have good eyes. It was me who destroyed the Divine Master's estate. Tsang nodded and praised the second elder. However, the second elder definitely didn't want to hear such a compliment, so he immediately wilted when he heard Tsang. AI. He was a reverent god after all. However, in the eyes of this Totoro, his strength was not that great. However, compared to this one, his strength seemed to be really insufficient. At the very least, he would not be able to destroy the Divine Master's estate. Therefore, to be praised by such a powerful senior, he could only express his honor. However, all the other elders, including Ning Hai, could not calm down after hearing Tsang admit that he was the powerful Totoro that destroyed the God Lord's estate. All of them were stunned with their mouths half open. These people didn't come back to their senses for a long time. Seeing this, Tsang's disdain for them deepened. It seemed that only the old man sitting at the head of the table had a better mental quality. The others all needed to be trained. Azure couldn't help but think. Then, it wagged its big furry tail and stared at the second elder. After a long time, the second elder admitted defeat and looked away. However, he would still steal glances at Tsang from the corner of his eyes from time to time. After this, Totoro had successfully destroyed the Divine Lord's estate and left the Divine Lord helpless. He had become the idol of most people in the divine realm, including himself. However, they only dared to worship him in their hearts and did not dare to say it out loud. Otherwise, they would be targeted by the people of the Divine Lord's estate in the next second. However, now that they had seen their idol with their own eyes, he was still extremely excited. Seeing the expression on the old man's face change from shock to depression and then to excitement, Azure was rather calm. In fact, he knew why the old man was like this, but he would not be proud, because it had never felt that what it had done was anything great. Hence, Tsang was very generous and confident as he allowed them to worship him. After a long time, the elders regained their senses one by one. When they regained their senses, their gazes turned from disbelief to fervent worship. Some of the elders couldn't help but swallow their saliva, wishing they could hold the cute Tsang in their arms and cherish him. Unfortunately, when they thought of Tsang's strength, no one dared to make a move. "Don't worship me. I'm a legend." Glancing at the expressions of the elders, Tsang said arrogantly, "Yes, yes." When the elders heard this, not only did they not feel that Tsang was arrogant, but they also felt that this was a matter of course. Some elders even took the initiative to ask, "Senior, please give me an autograph. I'll hang your name up and worship it every day." This elder's words received a unanimous response from the other elders. Seeing them so enthusiastic, Tsang felt a little embarrassed. After thinking for a long time, he smiled and said, "Since you're so sincere, I'll agree to it." Hearing this, all the elders immediately took out paper and pens, fighting to be the first to hand them to Tsang. However, Tsang looked at the pens they handed over and felt a little vexed. It wasn't very convenient to hold a pen with his claws now. Seeing Tsang's awkward situation, an elder tactfully gave him a black ink. Seeing this, Tsang gave that elder an appreciative look. At that time, he was so happy that he almost raised his tail if he had it. When the other elders saw this, they all stared at the elder with envy and jealousy. However, they were completely ignored by the elder. Following that, Tsang ordered the elders to place the paper on the ground. Then a papa sound was heard. After a few sounds, small plum blossom-shaped claws appeared on the snow-white paper. These were its signatures. After it signed its name, Azure told them to keep the paper and not lose it. After all, this was the first time it had signed for someone. It's so memorable. Tsang's heart was very happy. However, when the elders saw the paw prints on the white paper, they were at a loss. But on second thought, it was a Totoro in front of them, so it was normal to use paw prints to replace its name. Moreover, these were the paw prints of the Totoro that destroyed the Divine Lord's residence. Most people would not have the chance to obtain it. With that thought, they carefully put away the paper with a blue claw seal, and then continued to stare at Blue with fire in their eyes. "Don't look at me like that. They'll be embarrassed." Azure couldn't stand their fiery gazes and couldn't help sighing. This was the idol effect. It seemed that being an idol wasn't easy. Azure was quite satisfied with the little fans of the second elder. Of course, if their gazes weren't so passionate, it would be even more satisfied with them. Thinking of this, Azure couldn't help threatening, "They'll get angry if you keep looking at me like this." Upon hearing this, the elders immediately sat up straight and retracted their gazes. They only stared at the ground in front of them. Chapter 2073. Super Bright Light Bulb 1. Although the elders did not dare to look sideways because of Tsang's words, they would still sneak glances at Tsang from time to time whenever they had the opportunity. Tsang was helpless about this. Adjusting his happy mood, Tsang immediately said to the elders in a very serious manner, "You can all go back. Don't wait here. We're tired from the journey and have been frightened, so we must rest well." AI. Poor girl. Poor me. What a pitiful house. Why are we being targeted? Tsang's words became more and more resentful, and the elders gradually felt a chill down their spines when they heard it. A deep sense of desolation rose in their hearts, and all the elders trembled. They couldn't help but shiver, and all of them cursed in their hearts. That damn Ning Huan, he actually caused them such a big trouble. How preposterous. However, who would believe that Lung Ruoxue and the rest were frightened? All the elders were clear how strong Lung Ruoxue's heart was. How could those who dared to be with her be timid? And this Totoro, it even dared to destroy the Divine Master's estate. How could it be a coward? Although Tsang was their idol, the elders felt that they had to be realistic on this point. It would be strange if these people were frightened. In fact, they thought that Ning Huan and the others should be the ones who were shocked. However, since Tsang had said so, they couldn't refute him. After all, they had to give their idols some face. Therefore, the unlucky ones could only be Ning Huan and the others. At this moment, all the elders had the same opinion. At this moment, the second elder spoke on behalf of the other elders. "Then I wonder when Shui, and the others will be able to rest? I can't explain this clearly." Tsang spread out his two little claws and said very irresponsibly, Ah, can we trouble Senior to help us remind Shui? The second elder discussed. It's not that I can't help you remind Yo, but what benefits do I get? Song asked with a faint smile, but he couldn't help but think in his heart that he wouldn't do a losing business. Although this was just a simple matter, there was money to be earned. It would be a waste not to earn it. However, the moment it said this, the elders were immediately thrown into confusion. This would affect his image too much, wouldn't it? How could the strong always mention benefits? However, looking at Song's calm and matter-of-fact expression, they felt helpless. After that, the second elder could only sincerely say, as long as Senior is willing to help us remind Shui, we'll take care of all the fish you eat in the future. Fish? I don't like to eat fish. When Song heard this, he said with slight dissatisfaction, The second elder was stunned. Didn't Totoro like to eat fish the most? Why didn't the one in front of her like it? Then, what does Senior like to eat? After a pause, the second elder continued to ask, but he was a little uncertain in his heart. Senior is Senior. Don't you guess what Senior is thinking? You bastard. Do you think I'm a foodie? I like money. A treasure. Do you understand? When Azure heard the second elder's words, he couldn't help but roar in anger. Although he liked good food now, food was enough to satisfy him. So, this definitely couldn't be his benefit. Thinking of this, it secretly blamed the second elder of the Ning family for being so insensible. No wonder this old man could only be ranked second. The second elder once again looked at the small and cute Azure in a daze, countless black lines sliding down his forehead. It seemed like this was a greedy Totoro. He didn't know how much money could satisfy it. He was a little worried. Seeing the second elder's depression, she also did not intend to make things difficult for him, and said with good intentions, "It's just a reminder service. I won't ask for much. Just 10,000 top-grade crystals will do. Of course, I don't mind if it's a treasure of the same value." After saying this, Azure focused on the second elder, waiting for his reward. When the second elder heard this, black lines appeared on his forehead and cold sweat started to pour out. 10,000 top-grade crystals was just a reminder? Wasn't this price a little too expensive? In his opinion, this was a matter that could be easily resolved, but this powerful senior actually opened his mouth and asked him for 10,000 top-grade crystals. This was simply, when the other elders heard this, they felt that the price was not low. However, they blindly worshipped Xiao Song. After thinking about Xiao Song's identity, they felt that the price was reasonable. After thinking about it, they all sent a voice transmission to the second elder, asking him to agree. Seeing this, the second elder could only nod in agreement. "Senior, we agree to this price. We'll have to trouble you." The second elder said very courteously, "No problem. I've got the money to remind you." Azure said with satisfaction, This money was too easy to earn. However, the second elder's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he heard this. This guy was a master who wouldn't let go until he saw the rabbit, right? Although he thought this, the second elder still took the initiative to hand a small white jade box to Song. Song glanced at it and saw 1,000-year-old ginseng inside. Not bad. It was definitely worth more than 10,000 top-grade crystals. It was very satisfied. Then it put away the small white jade box and gave the second elder a look that said it was worth teaching. It then left the living room with elegant steps. Seeing Song leave, the elders didn't stay any longer and directly left Ning Hai's house. Although they had lost a lot of money this time, they had not come in vain. They were still satisfied with this. On the way back, the elders suddenly remembered that they had forgotten about Ning Huan and the rest. This time, they had intended to personally tell Lung Ruoxue about the outcome of the clan's punishment towards Ning Huan and the rest. Unfortunately, they did not get to see them. However, this was not a big deal, so they quickly felt relieved and walked briskly back to the Ning family's main residence. After Tsang left the living room, he went straight to Lung Ruoxue's room. After entering the room, it quickly occupied its favorite spot, Lung Ruoxue's arms. Song ignored the cold glares from the side and said to Lung Ruoxue as if he was presenting a treasure, "Girl, I've earned money. When Lung Ruashua heard this, the corners of her mouth twitched before she said, "Congratulations, hee. Naya. Here, this is my gift to you." Song threw the small white jade box to Lung Ruashua without any hesitation. Then, he lay in Lung Ruashua's arms and closed his eyes. When the evildoer at the side saw this, he was so angry that his eyes were wide open. He released even more cold air from his body. When Lung Ruashua saw this, she was extremely helpless. Shue'er, the demon glared at Lung Ruashua with a face full of hidden bitterness. His pitch-black eyes were filled with grievance, and he was hesitant to speak. Freak! Lung Ruashua helplessly lowered the demon's head and stole a kiss on his pink lips. The demon's heart trembled. Just as he was about to deepen the kiss, an untimely sneeze rang out. Instantly, the demon's face turned black from anger. Chapter 2074. Super bright light bulb too. Damn it. The demon was filled with hatred. He couldn't take it anymore and directly grabbed Song, who was in Shue'er's arms, and threw him out of the open window. With a swoosh, Song was thrown out in a parabola. Arg! Song. Upon seeing this, Lung Ruashua looked out of the window worriedly. The demon pulled Shue'er into his arms in a domineering manner and gritted his teeth. Don't worry about it, it won't die. All right then. In front of the beauty, one couldn't blame Lung Ruashua for forgetting the azure after seeing the beauty. It was simply because the demon's expression was too unsightly. Hence, she could only apologize to Azure. Seeing that Lung Ruashua was no longer concerned about that annoying Totoro, the demon hugged Shue'er even tighter in satisfaction. Then, he lowered his head and slowly kissed Shue'er's tender and alluring pink lips. Arg! What a pervert! Lecherous wolf! The demon had just touched Shue'er's lips when a shocking roar resounded through the clouds. Instantly, everyone's attention was attracted. Where's the pervert? Where's the pervert? Someone in the courtyard asked loudly. It was Chung Wu's voice. In Nyo's room, Azure said confidently. The person who heard the roar and ran out of the room was stunned and then fell silent. Things seemed to be a little troublesome. At this moment, everyone hated themselves for running out of their rooms. It was obvious that they knew the pervert that Song was talking about. Everyone was suddenly embarrassed. After racking their brains to think of all kinds of excuses, they fled the courtyard in a sorry state and hid in their rooms. Seeing this, Song revealed a deep look of disdain. Oomph, a bunch of cowards. In the silent night, this sound was exceptionally clear. Lung Ruashua, who had been staying in the room and listening to the commotion outside, couldn't help but burst out into laughter. Looking at the evildoer's dark expression, she thought to herself, Song is really good at playing tricks. This time, he has completely offended the evildoer. Sigh, if this man and beast really became like fire and water, the one who would be in trouble would probably be her. When the evil demon who was already furious heard Shue'er's chuckle, he became even angrier. He wanted to cut Songda into 8 pieces and throw him into the sea to feed the fish. That fellow, when I have the chance, I must teach it a lesson. I must let it know that trouble comes from the mouth. I must let it understand why flowers are so red. Just as the demon was thinking about how to deal with Song, Song jumped in through the window again. Then, it lay on the table closest to the two of them and stared at the demon with a provocative look. Big pervert! I will destroy you in the name of justice. Hearing Song's words, cold sweat and black lines appeared on Lung Ruashua's forehead once again. Where did Song learn these nonsensical words from? Wasn't this teaching the child the wrong things? Yes. In her heart, Song was just a child. Even though Song had existed for countless years, she felt that Song was very innocent. However, ever since they had known each other, Song would always say things that would drive people crazy. Hence, Lung Ruashua concluded that someone had taught Song the wrong things. Otherwise, how would her house's Song know about these messy things? In reality, this was definitely Lung Ruashua's way of thinking. No matter what, her own child was good. If he wasn't good, he would be taught bad by others. It definitely wasn't her child's problem. Hence, she had never thought about it. This was the nature of Tsang, who wanted the world to be in chaos. Sensing Lung Ruoxu's thoughts, Tsang immediately turned into a pitiful little thing when he faced Lung Ruoxu. He looked at his future master pitifully, causing Lung Ruoxu's heart to soften. Then, she took the initiative to pull on evildoer's sleeve, indicating that he should not be calculated with Tsang. The demon was a little angry, but he still listened to Shui Er's suggestion. However, his eyes were shooting daggers at Tsang. Oomph. Keep acting. Keep acting. Let's see how long you can act. When Shui Er isn't here, he'll take care of you. After making this decision, evildoer no longer paid attention to Cold's provocation. He continued to hug Shui Er tightly, wanting to share his feelings with her. However, Cold would always interrupt when the two of them were feeling affectionate. Girl, I still haven't reminded you to go to the Ning family's main residence as soon as possible. I'm afraid someone can't wait any longer. Azure said with a smile. Yes, I know. Lung Ruoxu nodded. Girl, when do you plan to go? Azure asked. Tomorrow. Lung Ruoxu said after some thought. Oh, what time is it tomorrow? Azure continued to ask. Hearing Tsang's questions one after another, Lung Ruoxu was depressed. However, the demon was even more depressed. This was because both of them could tell that Tsang was just trying to find a topic to talk about. To put it bluntly, this big light bulb didn't intend to let the two of them express their feelings to each other. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxu looked helplessly at the evildoer whose eyes were spewing fire. Then, with a change of mind, she brought herself and the evildoer into the bracelet. If this continued, the demon would probably go crazy. The moment he saw Lung Ruoxu and the evil man disappear together, Tsang knew that he had been abandoned. Bad master. How could he abandon it? No, it would never allow such a thing to happen. It wanted to be the light bulb between the two of them and not let them be alone. Thinking of this, Azure roared into the void. Qingju, green vessel, come out now. If you have something to say, then say it. A clear voice rang out in the room. It was Green Vessel's voice, and it sounded rather impatient. It was obvious that it did not want to bother with it. Take me into the bangle. Tsang said directly. I'm sorry, you can't come in now. Qingju refused. Why? It's not like I've never been in there before. Azure's eyes widened, and he shouted in displeasure. You also said that that was in the past. My strength is still so low now. If you come in, you will hurt me. So, I can't take the risk. Qingju said, leaving no room for discussion. I won tea. They'll control myself. Azure promised. That won't do either. You and that demon hate each other. If you fight in my space, what if you hurt me? So, you better give up on that idea. Qingju still refused. After he finished speaking, his voice disappeared. No matter how Runsong called him, he didn't respond. Instantly, the sea chi stopped. The fur on its body stood on end, its eyes were wide open, and its sharp claws were scratching the wall in anger. The next morning, when Lung Ruoxu and the demon came out of the room, they saw that the originally snow-white walls had deep claw marks. Tsang Zi was not in the room, and Lung Ruoxu started to worry. Evildoer, could Azure be angry? Lung Ruoxu could not help but ask. I won tea. That guy's mental endurance was strong. It's also very resilient, so it won't be provoked by such a small matter. Trust me, the evildoer promised. Although he didn't like Shui to care about that annoying fellow, Shui was his master after all. Chapter 2075, Super Bright Light Bulb 3. As expected, the moment the two of them left the room, they saw Tsang already sitting at the stone table in the courtyard. In front of him was a plate of food, and he was gobbling it up. When he saw Lung Ruoxu, Tsang even waved at her, signaling her to come over and eat. It was as if nothing had happened yesterday. Lung Ruoxu looked at Tsang for a long time, suspiciously. In the end, after confirming that Tsang really wasn't angry about yesterday's incident, she felt at ease. In reality, how could the narrow-minded Azure not be angry? However, it put this account on the demon's head, so naturally, it would not be angry at its fragrant and soft future master. After breakfast, Lung Ruoxue apologetically told Ning Hai about the destruction of the room. When Ning Hai heard it, he couldn't help but open his mouth and look at Song. Then he said with a lingering fear, "It's all right, it's not a big deal." Yes, compared to the Divine Master's residence, the claw marks in his room were nothing. Following that, Lung Ruoxue's group of four bid farewell to Ning Hai's family and headed towards the Ning family's main residence. Before they could approach the Ning family's main residence, a Ning family steward, who had been waiting for them outside the door, immediately rushed in front of them when he saw the Great Elder. Then, with a nervous face, he searched the four people and one beast, and then asked with a slight disappointment, "Miss Lung didn't come? They're here." The first elder glanced at Lung Ruoxue as his mouth twitched. "May I know where it is?" The manager's face was filled with anxiety. At this moment, the Grand Elder with a high status and the Totoro in Lung Ruoxue's arms could no longer pique his interest. He only wanted to find Lung Ruoxue. "I'm here," Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Hearing the voice, the manager turned towards Lung Ruoxue and suddenly realized that the person who spoke was a man. Instantly, the manager was in a state of confusion. Oh my God, what was going on? Wasn't Miss Lung a woman? But this person who called himself Miss Lung was clearly a genuine man. At the thought of this, the steward's gaze quietly shifted to Lung Ruoxue's flat chest. After confirming it once again, he could not help but turn pale with fright. Could it be that Miss Lung was not Miss Lung, but Master Lung? Seeing the manager's face changing like a color palette, Lung Ruoxue could not be bothered to explain anything to him. Instead, she asked directly, "Aren't you going to invite us in? Arg, please come in. Please come in." The manager was sweating profusely. How could he be so rude to Master Lung? Moreover, First Elder was also present. He was the family head's best friend. The manager welcomed Lung Ruoxue and the rest into the living room. At this moment, Second Elder and the rest who had heard the news were already waiting here. When they saw Song, the elders suppressed the excitement in their hearts and didn't surround him. However, their fervent gazes explained everything. All the elders were suppressing their excitement. Xiang Tsang, First Elder, and the rest greeted him one by one. When they looked at Lung Ruoxue, the elders did not know what to say. They did not know this unfamiliar man. "I'm Lung Ruoxue." Lung Ruoxue glanced at the elders and spoke calmly. "Ah!" All the elders were shocked. They stared at Lung Ruoxue in disbelief. At this moment, the shock that Lung Ruoxue gave them was even greater than Song. "Are you cross-dressing?" After sizing up Lung Ruoxue, Second Elder could not tell that this man was Lung Ruoxue. Hence, he could only ask carefully. "Yes." Lung Ruoxue didn't want to explain too much to them, so she nodded. Upon hearing this, the elders' hearts finally settled down. It was still all right. That little girl had finally arrived. They had been disappointed for quite a while when they did not see Lung Ruoxue. They even thought that the manager was lying to them. Now that they had confirmed it, they were relieved. "Little girl, they'll take you to see the master." After confirming, the Second Elder said without any hesitation. "All right," he said. Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. Following that, the Second Elder brought Lung Ruoxue, the group of four people, and one beast to the forbidden grounds at the back of the mountain. However, when she saw the reluctant gazes of the elders before they left, Lung Ruoxue was truly speechless. She knew that those reluctant eyes were definitely not for her, but for Song. He didn't expect Song to capture the hearts of the Ning family elders so quickly. He was really amazing. However, on second thought, this world was where the strong were respected, so it was only natural for them to worship Song. Seeing how calm Song was, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh. Soon, they arrived at the back mountain. After entering the forbidden area, Second Elder sent Lung Ruoxue and the rest to the residence of his family head. He then found an excuse to leave. He didn't want to go in and be their cannon fodder. If these people didn't agree, he would definitely be the one in trouble. With this thought in mind, the Second Elder ran even faster than a rabbit. When they entered the garden, they saw Master Ning sitting on a stone chair with a cup of tea in his hand. However, When he saw them, Master Ning snorted arrogantly and turned his head away, ignoring them. He also knew that Lung Ruoxue had disguised herself as a man. After all, ever since he knew that they had arrived in the Ning family's main city, his divine sense had been watching them. Seeing this, the first elder quickly stepped forward and slammed the table with a displeased expression. "You're good, old man Ning. We came to see you with good intentions, but you're giving us a hard time." "Umph. Did I ask you to come?" the master of the Ning family said unhappily. In fact, he was annoyed that the other party had come too late. "Are you saying that we shouldn't have come?" The great elder stared at the master of the Ning family and asked. Then he muttered to himself, "AI, it looks like we really shouldn't have come. We're here to be bullied by your family's younger generation. What are we trying to achieve?" After he finished speaking, the first elder's face revealed an expression of extreme regret. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she could not help but laugh to herself. These two old men were actually acting. After hearing the great elder's words, the master of the Ning family snorted coldly and didn't have any other reaction. In fact, he was a little weak in his heart, but on second thought, he was a little annoyed. Damn it, what was he feeling guilty about? The one at fault was clearly that brat. At the thought of this, he glared at Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue felt that she was very innocent. It was clearly these two old men who were fighting, so how did she get implicated? She hadn't even started. Thinking of this, Lung Ruoxue felt wronged and said, "Godfather, do you know how dangerous our journey was? We met a few guys who claimed to be from the Ning family. They wanted to take advantage of their power to bully us and rob our things. In the end, they even wanted to silence us. It really wasn't easy for us to come here. We were so close to not being able to see Godfather anymore. That's right, we almost lost our lives, and you're giving us attitude. You really shouldn't have. We're so sad." After First Elder heard Lung Ruoxue's words, he quickly chimed in. This was called striking first to gain the initiative. Oomph. He even dared to cause trouble in the God Lord's mansion. You even dared to destroy it. So why would you be afraid of a few ants? When Master Ning heard this, he was furious and his eyes swept over Tsang. Tsang immediately put on a delicate appearance and said, "I'm just a bonus. It's not important." "You're not important? Among these people, you are the fiercest." Hearing Tsang's words, Master Ning couldn't help but think in his heart. However, he remained calm and continued, "All right, we all know that those unfilial descendants of a Ning family can't do anything to you. Moreover, I've decided to hand them over to you to deal with. It's up to you whether you want to kill them or keep them alive. So, don't confuse this matter with the fact that you've been hiding it from me. I won't be fooled." Seeing that their godfather had guessed their thoughts, Lung Ruoxue and the rest looked at each other helplessly. Then, Lung Ruoxue carefully said, "Godfather, we hid this from you because we didn't want you to worry." "Oomph. You shouldn't have kept it from me if you were afraid that I would be worried. You should let me go with you." The master of the Ning family was furious when this matter was brought up, and finally, he couldn't bear it anymore and roared, "You have to stay at home and help us." Besides, with Uncle Long, Uncle Ao, and that freak here, our safety is definitely guaranteed. Lung Ruoxue understood what he meant. Godfather was angry that she didn't bring him along. Therefore, she could only coax him patiently. "Oomph. Why do I have to stay behind to guard the place? Can't they stay behind?" The master of the Ning family asked again. To put it bluntly, he was jealous. If those people could stay by Shui'er's side, why couldn't he? "Godfather, you're a well-known figure in the divine realm. If you go with them and are discovered by Rime Ice, the Ning family will also be in danger. Although I really want you to accompany me, I still have to think for the Ning family. You are the backbone of the Ning family, so when you're doing this kind of bad thing, you absolutely can't stand out." Lung Ruoxue laid out the truth. "Don't you have the disguise pill? Just give me one." The master of the Ning family reminded angrily. "There's no such thing as an impervious wall in this world. I don't dare to take the risk." When Lung Ruoxue said this, her face was full of innocence. She even used her puppy-like watery black eyes to look at Master Ning ingratiatingly. Master Ning's heart softened and his anger subsided a lot. In fact, when he first found out about this, he was really angry. He was angry that actually dared to hide such a big thing from him. This made him feel like his precious goddaughter no longer needed him. This feeling made him very disappointed, which was why he lost his temper and left the devil's land in a fit of anger. Chapter 2076. We're all bosses 1. However, as soon as he left the devil's land and returned to the Ning family, he regretted it. He wanted to go back, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, so he could only wait for this stinky girl, to coax him. But who knew that after waiting for so long, this stinky girl came so late? Thinking of this, the anger in the Ning family's master's heart suddenly burst out again. You don't dare to take the risk? All right, you're quite thoughtful, but why didn't you tell me immediately when you came back? The master of the Ning family once again glared at him and roared. In other words, he was saying, "You didn't tell me, and you knew I was angry, but you didn't come to coax me earlier. What are you trying to do?" I was making an antidote for senior brother. I wanted to wake him up as soon as possible and then tell you about this. Lung Ruoxue said with a slight grievance. In reality, she had also thought that this matter would most likely not be able to be kept a secret. However, she did not expect that Godfather would find out so quickly. Furthermore, she did not expect that Godfather would lose his temper and actually run away from home in a fit of anger. He had left her home. Moreover, she thought that Godfather's anger would subside after a few days. Who knew that Godfather was so proud? Will you really tell me about this? After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Master Ning squinted his eyes and asked doubtfully. Of course, and I have more important things to tell Godfather, Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. What is it? The master of the Ning family raised his brows and asked. Upon hearing this, the first elder immediately looked at Lung Ruoxue. He was very interested in the important matter she was talking about. It's not convenient to talk here, Lung Ruoxue said as she swept her gaze across the garden. Follow me, the master of the Ning family said with a serious face. He was sure that what wanted to tell him was definitely not ordinary. With that, Master Ning brought Lung Ruoxue and the rest to his own secret room. After entering the secret room, they found their seats and sat down. Then, the master of the Ning family said with a serious face, Stinky girl, if you have something important to say, just say it. This place is very safe. Then he'll say it. Godfather, you'd better be mentally prepared. Lung Ruoxue reminded him with a serious expression. Yes. The master of the Ning family nodded, but his heart was a little uneasy. He didn't know what important thing wanted to tell him, making it so mysterious. To be honest, his heart was beating very fast at this time, as if something was going to happen. Let's start with senior brother's injury. Do Godfather and Great Elder know who our master is? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. Girl, don't keep me in suspense. Hurry up and tell me. The Grand Elder urged him anxiously. Yes, tell me quickly. The master of the Ning family nodded in agreement and used his eyes to signal Lung Ruoxue to continue. Our master is the master you speak of. Lung Ruoxue looked at the two anxious old men and said calmly. As soon as she said this, the master of the Ning family and the Great Elder were as dumbfounded as she had expected. They followed Chung Wu and asked with a face full of question marks, Miss, was that master you, the previous divine master? He vaguely remembered that he had heard Uncle Long mention it once, but he did not take it to heart at that time. Lung Ruoxue nodded and didn't say anything. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on the master of the Ning family and the first elder, observing their reactions. After Chung Wu received the confirmation, he was extremely excited. This was too unexpected. He didn't expect his Miss Master to be the previous divine master of the divine realm. Oh, Miss Backing is huge. When Chung Wu thought of all this, his heart started beating wildly. However, Master Ning and First Elder were not as excited as he was. After the two of them regained their senses, they looked at Lung Ruoxue with a worried expression. After a long while, Master Ning took a deep breath and slowly said, "Girl, you can't let outsiders know about this." "Why?" Shengwu was puzzled. Wasn't this a good thing? He was still unaware of the grudges between Master Yu and the current Divine Master. He also did not know that Lung Ruoxue and Wu Ming were destined to be enemies. Because if the current Divine Master finds out that Xue is Master Ye's disciple, he won't let her off. The Master of the Ning family sighed and said helplessly. Although he was still young when Master Ye's accident happened, he had been a high-ranking official for so many years, so he knew a little about the secret of that year. Therefore, he really couldn't imagine what Wu Yan would do if he knew that Xue was Master Ye's disciple. After hearing the explanation of the Ning family head, Cheng Wu's face was filled with disbelief. How could this happen? AI, little brat, you don't know what happened back then. Our current Divine Master used underhanded means to ascend the throne. Otherwise, how could Master Yu have died? The Great Elder also sighed. At that time, if it wasn't for their young age and their ignorant appearance, it was hard to say whether they could have lived until now. Thinking back to the past, it was really thrilling. It was as if they were walking on thin ice every day. If they made a mistake or said something wrong, they might be hunted down by the people sent by the fog ripple. That period of time could be said to be the darkest time in the hearts of many people in the immortal realm. Chengwu did not know what to say. He could only stare at Lung Ruoxue without blinking. However, he could not help but worry in his heart. If it was really like what Master Ning and First Elder had said, then the young lady would be in danger. "Little girl, your senior brother's injury is related to rime ice?" The Master of the Ning family asked. "Yes, only the flower petal on Maline's body can heal senior brother's injuries, so I had no choice but to go to the Divine Lord's estate to get the flower petal for senior brother." Lung Ruoxue explained simply. This is too dangerous." The Master of the Ning family broke out in a cold sweat. Even if Xue was sitting right in front of him, he couldn't help but be afraid when he thought of the scene at that time. "It's good. We've finally returned safely." Lung Ruoxue smiled as she consoled him. "You're praising me too much. I got the petals back. Don't forget to take credit. And it's all thanks to Song." Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. Song. After hearing the Totoro's words and seeing Lung Ruoxue call it Song, Master Ning couldn't help but think to himself, why does this name give him a sense of déjà vu? He seemed to have heard it somewhere before. However, he could not remember. All of a sudden, he had a flash of inspiration. Then, he revealed an expression of disbelief. You are the spirit of the God-protecting tower? Correct, but no reward." Azure raised his little head and said with an evil smile, "Arg, it's true." After the Master of the Ning family confirmed it, he couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. He thought to himself with lingering fear, when did the Totoro clan become so powerful? If it was the spirit of the God Protection Tower, then it was understandable. There was nothing in this world that he would not dare to do, except killing the Master God. Chapter 2077. We're both masters, too. "I'm sure," Azure said with some pride. At this time, the First Elder who was listening to their conversation said in a daze, I actually hugged the spirit of the God-protecting pagoda before. It hurts. This is real." It turned out that the Great Elder thought he was dreaming, so he pinched himself hard. After feeling the severe pain, he dared to believe what he had heard. Then, he looked at his hands in a daze, so excited that he couldn't speak. Although he felt that Song's name was familiar, he did not think of it that way. More importantly, the spirit of the God Protection Tower was a legendary figure in the divine world. Its fame was definitely not lower than the Divine Lordess. Moreover, everyone knew that the spirit of the God Protection Tower did not even give in to the Divine Lord. When the Master of the Ning family and the Great Elder thought of this, they couldn't help but say in unison, "Thank you, Senior, for helping Xue." "Tisk, who needs your thanks? Nio's my future master. It's my duty to help him," Azure said disapprovingly. Upon hearing this, the Ning clan head and Grand Elder were once again at a loss for words. They were so shocked that they could not speak. As for Chung Wu, the question marks on his face increased. The spirit of the god-protecting pagoda, it seemed to be very powerful. However, he knew that Song was not to be trifled with, so he did not dare to reveal his ignorance. He could only send a voice transmission to his lady in private. After hearing Lung Ruoxu's explanation, his gaze towards Song became even more heated. He was an idol. This was a true idol. Originally, he thought that Song was just very fierce. He didn't expect that his status was also so high. Moreover, they would have the opportunity to work together in the future. This was simply too blissful. Chung Wu was so happy that his tail was about to curl up. He was so excited that he couldn't speak. Sensing Chung Wu's excitement, Song Yu specially jumped in front of him and patted his shoulder. "Brat, from now on you're my little brother. Follow this lord, and you'll have meat to eat." Ugh, would he be its little brother in the future? Chung Wu was a little confused. He thought that he had already become one. However, it didn't matter in the future. Thinking of this, he said to Azure, "Master Song, please take care of this little brother in the future. Whether this little brother can live well or drink well, it all depends on you." "Oh, really? So, I've been starving you all this time?" Hearing Chung Wu's words, Lung Ruoxue was unhappy. The evildoer snorted coldly. "Chung Wu, are you thinking of leaving Shui and going to mix with that Totoro? Don't you regret it? That Totoro is very unreliable." Of course, they said that on purpose to ease the tense atmosphere. However, Chung Wu did not know. The moment Chung Wu heard Lung Ruoxue and the demon's conversation, he broke out in cold sweat. He shook his head like a rattle drum and quickly explained, "Miss, you've misunderstood. I didn't mean it that way. You what?" Lung Ruoxue glanced at Chung Wu with a half-smile as she spoke indifferently. "What I mean is Song and I will be colleagues in the future. Since we are colleagues, of course we have to get along well. We can't let Miss worry about us. In the future, if you have any problems, just find Song for help." "Ugh, that was probably what I meant. Miss, please don't misunderstand," Chung Wu said fearfully as he thought of his words and felt a lingering fear. "Don't worry, Neo won't misunderstand. She's just teasing you. However, you can't look for me if you have any problems in the future. You have to deal with it yourself. As the saying goes, it's better to rely on yourself than on others. You have to find your own way to solve everything and don't rely on others for everything. Those people are parasites and will never become strong." Chiyu said earnestly. "I know, I'm just saying." Song's words made Chung Wu a little embarrassed. In fact, his words were mostly a joke. When he said it, he didn't expect his miss to misunderstand. Now that he heard Song say that Miss was just teasing him, he instantly felt at ease. However, he still looked at Lung Ruoxue with resentment, his eyes filled with grievance. Wu, young Miss was really too bad, actually scaring him. When she saw Chung Wu's pitiful expression, Lung Ruoxue could not help but laugh in her heart. With their interruption, the master of the Ning family and the great elder quickly came back to their senses, but they still couldn't hide the surprise on their faces. Then, the great elder couldn't help but ask, "Song, you said that Shui is your future master. What do you mean? Don't tell me you haven't recognized me as your master yet?" "Of course not. Neo still can't meet my requirements, so she can't recognize me as her master yet. I'll train her later until she meets my requirements. At that time, Neo will become my true master," Azure explained with a smile. Oh, when the great elder heard this, he nodded his head and thought to himself, Azure's requirements are really high. Even a monster like Little Shui can't make it recognize a master. No wonder Azure has been without a master for so many years. Moreover, if Shui had a guardian tower spirit, then she would have the power to fight against Rhyme in the divine world. However, he didn't expect that Azure couldn't help Shui at all. After all, it was restricted by some rules. Lung Ruoxue saw that the great elder and her godfather had already been triggered by Tsong's identity. She then spoke again. "There's one more thing. It's about the demon's identity." What's this kid's identity? First Elder and Master Ning looked at each other, and their hearts started to beat wildly again. Could it be that this brat Yi also had a mysterious identity. His true identity is the master of the nine, nether prison. Lung Ruoxue said straightforwardly. This time, she did not keep him in suspense. What? Mistress of the dark world. The two of them turned pale with fright and were once again dumbfounded. This time, they felt even more shocked than knowing Tsong's identity. The master of the nine nether prison was the legendary Dark Lord. Why did the mistress of the dark world come to the God world? It should be known that the people from the nine nether prison were not welcomed in the divine world, and the dark mistress was feared by many deities. Therefore, the identity of a monster was definitely more exciting than Tsong's identity. It was to the extent that they were still in a daze for a long time. Lung Ruoxue saw their reaction and did not disturb them. Instead, she gave them enough time to digest this matter. On the other hand, Cheng Wu's face revealed a blank expression. After a long time, the first elder and the master of the Ning family came back to their senses. The two of them looked at each other and then sighed in unison. Ai. By Shui Er's side, regardless of whether it was Tsong or Yang, both of them had the strength to fight with Wu Xiao. Unfortunately, it was not appropriate for either of them to take action. Therefore, Shui Er had to rely on herself to deal with Wu Xiao. They were well aware of this. However, with the protection of these two, it would not be long before Shui Er became a powerful expert. This fact made the two of them full of expectations for Shui Er's future strength. After all, Master Ye's disciple and Wu Jing were absolutely mortal enemies. There was no way they could live in peace. Lung Ruoxue's next words further confirmed the thoughts in their hearts. Chapter 2078. We're all bosses 3. Following that, Lung Ruoxue continued, Godfather, first elder, as Master's disciple, I must avenge him. Therefore, I need a lot of help and allies. Although I really hope that Godfather and first elder can help me, I know that you're not just on your own. You also have to think about your families. Therefore, Lung Ruoxue wanted to say that she hoped they would consider it carefully. Even if they couldn't help, she wouldn't blame them. However, before she could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by Master Ning. Stinky girl, I don't care what you're thinking in your heart. Don't even think about abandoning me to seek revenge alone. How could the master of the Ning family not understand Lung Ruoxue's thoughts? Hence, after he interrupted her, he immediately roared fiercely, his shrewd eyes filled with warning. Yup, little girl, you can't leave us behind unless you look down on us. Although I'm not very strong, I know a lot of people, and many of them have conflicts with me. I believe that with your status as Master Ye's disciple, they will definitely be willing to help you. First Elder said, after some thought, Godfather, Great Elder, I want to say my thanks to you. Besides, I don't intend to let too many people know of my identity. After all, my strength is still too low, and others may not have confidence in me. Therefore, after senior brother's matter is resolved, I've decided to go into seclusion again. As for the other matters, I'll ask Great Elder and Godfather to take care of them. Lung Ruoxue said, after some thought, after listening to the two of them. You just focus on your closed-door cultivation. Leave the rest to us. The master of the Ning family promised. He was very happy that Shui Er was not being polite to him. Besides, Shui Er was right. Even if Shui Er was the Master Ye's disciple, those old guys who had been living in seclusion for many years and had a bad relationship with Wu Yin might not be willing to be loyal to her if they couldn't see her potential. However, he could help Shui or contact them in advance. Whether she could subdue them or not depended on Shui Er's own ability. He couldn't help her on this point. He and Uncle Long had the same idea. The Great Elder had the same thoughts as him. Therefore, the two of them looked at each other again and had a tacit understanding. After explaining everything to them, Lung Ruoxue brought up the same old topic again. Godfather, the reason why I went to the Divine Master's estate was that I had a monster with me, so I didn't have to worry. Besides, I still have another important trump card, the Universal Bracelet. With them, I'm very confident. However, I didn't tell Godfather and Great Elder because I didn't plan to tell you at that time, and I was afraid you would be worried. So, you won't blame me, right? What's the use of blaming you? You've already been there. The master of the Ning family snorted and said helplessly. In fact, he was not angry anymore. He was only angry that Shui had gone to the Divine Lord's estate without telling him. As for the secrets and trump cards that Shui had not told him, he felt it was normal. After all, who did not have secrets? Even family members did not have to tell them. So, he was not angry about this. The first elder didn't think there was anything to be angry about. However, the words universal bracelet piqued his interest. Shui, the universal bracelet you mentioned, is it Master US? The great elder asked excitedly. As a blacksmith, he had received guidance from Lord Yu before. Therefore, he was no stranger to these 3 words. However, the universal bracelet belonged to Lord Yu, so not many people knew about it. It was not as famous as the God-protecting pagoda. However, these 2 divine weapons were extremely rare innate divine weapons. They were also of great importance to the divine realm. And Lung Ruoxue nodded. Then, First Elder became even more agitated. He grabbed Lung Ruoxue's arm tightly and pleaded, Swearer, can you bring me in and take a look? He had been to the bracelet once, and it was unforgettable. The reason why he had wanted to make a spatial artifact that could accommodate people for so many years was also because he had been inspired by the bracelet. Therefore, he really hoped to revisit the universal bracelet. What? When Master Ning heard the Grand Elder's words and saw his reaction, his face was filled with question marks. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue had an idea and brought them into the bracelet. Seeing the stranger in the bracelet, Qingju immediately appeared. Qingju, welcome. It's you, little guy. Qingju introduced himself as he stood in front of the great elder. Then, he spoke like an elder. A little kid actually called a middle-aged man little fellow. No matter how one looked at it, this scene was extremely strange. When Lung Ruoxue and the others heard this, countless black lines could not help but slide down their foreheads. The great elder was so embarrassed that he wished he could find a hole to hide in. It was really too embarrassing, wasn't it? Ha ha! Old man, I didn't expect you to have this day. How do you feel being called a little kid? The master of the Ning family teased the great elder in a good mood when he heard Qingju call the great elder a little fellow. As soon as the master of the Ning family said this, the great elder couldn't help but hold up Qingju and implored with a depressed face, Little doll, you're the little one, so please don't call me that, okay? You can call me grandfather or great elder, or you can call me old man, but just don't call me little guy. After hearing the first elder's words, Qingju rolled his eyes and said calmly, In my eyes, you're just a little kid, and all of you are. So, don't act old in front of me. You should know that you can't judge a book by its cover. I'm not asking you to call me senior, so don't stop me from calling you little guys. The great elder was depressed. After holding it in for a long time, he didn't know how to refute it. At this time, Master Ning's eyes were also attracted by the beautiful scenery in the bracelet. Like a grandmother Lu entering the Grandview Garden, he felt that his eyes were not enough to see. Little girl, the spiritual chi here is so dense. It's really a good place to cultivate. The master of the Ning family exclaimed in admiration. As he spoke, his eyes were still searching around. When Qingju heard Master Ning's words, he said very proudly, Of course, my place is much better than that broken, God-protecting tower. The scenery is good, and the spiritual energy is gentle. The God-protecting pagoda can't compare at all. It still remembered that Song wanted to snatch its sister. Therefore, as long as he had the opportunity, he would spare no effort to smear Song, who asked Song not to be here. At this moment, Song was scratching the wall outside. Qingju thought happily. However, Qingju's words made the great elder and the master of the Ning family not know how to respond. It seemed that it would not be good for them to offend anyone. Helplessly, the master of the Ning family hurriedly changed the topic. Little girl, quickly take me on a good tour. He was desperate to leave Green Vessel, this ticking time bomb. Lung Ruoxue smiled helplessly before nodding her head and bringing her godfather around for a tour. The first elder, who wanted to follow them, was pulled back by Qingju. "Little fellow, follow me to the artifact refining room. Let me see if your artifact refining level has improved." After he finished speaking, he dragged the great elder away. Even when Lung Ruoxua brought her godfather away from the bracelet, they did not see First Elder coming out of the armament refining room. However, just as he came out of the bracelet, Master Ning almost cried. Looking at the mess in his secret chamber, he wanted to cry, but had no tears. The culprit who made his secret chamber this way did not have any self-awareness at all. After seeing them, he was still scratching the wall with all his might. Whoosh! Whoosh! His voice kept reverberating in Lung Ruoxu's ears. Lung Ruoxu's forehead was filled with black lines as she looked at her godfather apologetically. Then, she quickly stepped forward and pulled the frantic Song into her arms. This little guy had already destroyed a room in Brother Ning's house yesterday. Today, he was actually destroying his godfather's secret room. It was really a headache. Song, who was being hugged by Lung Ruoxua, was like an abandoned puppy. His pitch-black eyes were filled with tears as he looked at Lung Ruoxua pitifully. That little look of his was as pitiful as it could get. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxua felt even more helpless. This little fellow had done something bad, and she was being wronged. What was this? "Girl, you've abandoned me again." Song struck first and blamed Lung Ruoxua, causing more black lines to appear on Lung Ruoxua's forehead. "You can't get into the bangle now." Lung Ruoxua stated the truth. "You abandoned me," Song repeated. He didn't care if he could enter the bracelet or not. It was talking about how the girl had abandoned it, so it automatically filtered out some words. Seeing Song like this, Lung Ruoxu's head started to hurt. However, she could tell that Song was clearly trying to cover up the destruction that she had caused. Not only that, he was even reminding her that she had abandoned him. The demon was also well aware of Azure's thoughts, so he said directly, "Since Master Ning's secret chamber was destroyed by it, you should give it to Master Ning as compensation." The demon was also trying to destroy the light bulbs around him. When Azure heard this, he was furious. "You damn ghost! What did you just say?" Song roared. The hair on his body stood up. He was really angry. Then, it turned its little head to Master Ning and asked fiercely, "Do you need me to compensate you?" I don't need it." Master Ning's little heart trembled, and he was so scared that he quickly expressed his position. In his heart, he couldn't help but want to cry. Was he being shot while lying down? Why did you have to involve him in your jealousy? Unfortunately, he could not afford to offend either of these two. AI, we're all lords. Chapter 2079, Voluntarily Sacrificed, 1. Thinking of these two guys, the master of the Ning family felt extremely aggrieved. He was a big shot with a reputation and status in the divine world, but unfortunately, he was nothing in front of these two. However, in comparison, evildoers seemed to be easier to talk to than Song. At least, the two of them had been together for a long time, and there was also Shui. He would more or less give him some face as his godfather. However, Song was different. No matter how he looked at him, he didn't find Song to be easy to talk to. If this little dragon cat went crazy, he was afraid that it would not even give face to Shui. Thus, after weighing the pros and cons, he chose to appease Song. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would not only destroy one secret room, but the entire Ning family would be destroyed. With this thought in mind, Master Ning's attitude towards Song became more and more kind. Of course, he also had to take care of the face of the evildoer, because he could already feel the other party's cold eyes. Why was he the one who was injured? Because of the discord between evildoer and Song, the master of the Ning family did not dare to arrange for Shui and the others to stay in the forbidden area at the back of the mountain. Instead, he arranged the best guest rooms in the main courtyard for them. Lung Ruoxua had no objection to this. She was afraid that these two troublesome fellows would destroy the forbidden area in the back of the mountain in a fit of anger. If that happened, they would be in big trouble. Since they didn't stay in the forbidden area, the master of the Ning family had moved to the main courtyard from the forbidden area. However, the atmosphere in the main courtyard had become tense. Everyone was like a young wife every day. The second elder even personally led the elders of his family to report to Lung Ruoxue every day. Of course, it wasn't to see her. Their targets were the master of the Ning family and Liao Song. In the past few days, Song's status in the Ning family had risen sharply, even surpassing the momentum of the Ning family's master. But the Ning family's master didn't care about this. Song was being coaxed and pampered every day. He was a little smug. However, after staying in the main courtyard for a few days, the master of the Ning family was so bored that he regretted it. Because the great elder, Shui and Cheng Wu were all in the bracelet, there was only Demon, Song, and him in the courtyard every day. Those two guys would definitely go to the house and tear down the tiles if they didn't fight. Of course, it was the two of them who fought, but the tiles that were torn down were his Ning family's tiles. Because of this, every day there would be banging sounds coming from the guest courtyard, causing the Ning family's housekeeper to be busy sending people to repair the guest courtyard every day. Later, the Ning family master simply ordered the housekeeper to arrange a team of people to stay in the guest courtyard all day long to wait for orders. As long as the two of them took action, they would be ready to maintain it at any time. As a result, the workload of some people in the Ning family instantly increased, but those people dared not say anything. However, Lung Ruoxue and the first elder, who were inside the bangle, were completely unaware of all this. One of them continued to make antidotes for Bing Yao, while the other was forced to do hard labor by Qing Ju to be tested by Qing Ju every day. In this way, the great elder could clearly feel that his weapon refining skills, which had not improved for many years, had actually improved. This result made the great elder ecstatic, and he became more proactive in refining equipment. As for Lung Ruoxue, she stayed in the alchemy room in the purple bamboo house every day, observing the blood cherry blossom petal that she had only used a small portion of. Although it had already been separated from the main body, the vitality of this petal was equally tenacious. It actually still showed signs of life. This fact could not help but cause Lung Ruoxue to be extremely amazed. This flower was indeed a dangerous character. Fortunately, Song and Qing Ju had warned her before this. Thus, when she used the blood cherry blossom petals to refine pills, she would set up a barrier to prevent the situation inside the bangle from being leaked. However, how to resolve the blood cherry blossom's ruthless aura had always been a headache for her. According to common sense, as long as there was a violent aura in a medicinal herb, the auxiliary materials would generally be gentler medicinal herbs to neutralize the medicinal properties. However, in the antidote she was going to refine this time, there was a medicinal herb that was naturally at odds with the blood cherry. The herb was the fish scale flower. Both the fish scale flower and the blood cherry blossom had bright red petals. However, the fish scale flower was a heavenly treasure and could be used as both medicine and poison. On the other hand, the blood cherry blossom was a pure poisonous flower. Every time Lung Ruoxue placed these two petals into the pill furnace, they, who were both king's flowers, would fight each other for the main position. This was why her pills had been unable to be successfully refined. She had also studied this situation with the fish scale flower spirit, but the little thing didn't have any good solutions. After all, this result was determined by their nature. The status of the two flowers in the world of plants was not low. Naturally, they were not willing to be under others. Originally, if the two flowers did not interfere with each other, this situation would not exist. However, to refine them into medicinal pills, they could not continue to do things their own way, right? If that was really the case, the medicinal pill could never succeed. The blood cherry blossom was ruthless and overbearing. It would not allow the fish scale flower to stand on its head. Lung Ruoxue's brows furrowed at the thought of this. At this moment, a soft and sweet voice sounded in Lung Ruoxue's heart. "Sister, I have an idea, but I don't know if it will work." The fish scale flower spirit's voice rang out in Lung Ruoxue's heart. The moment Lung Ruoxue heard this, she was overjoyed and quickly moved the little fellow in front of her. The moment the little fellow appeared, it pounced straight into Lung Ruoxu's arms. After being intimate with her for a while, it blushed slightly and said with embarrassment, "Big sister, why don't you try throwing my petal and the blood cherry petal into the pill furnace together? I will find a way to kill it and make it obedient." What? Lung Ruoxu's face was filled with confusion. Clearly, she did not understand what the fish scale flower spirit meant. What do you mean by "I will find a way to kill it"? How is the little fish scale flower spirit going to kill the blood cherry blossom? Previously, she had melted the petals of the fish scale flower and the blood cherry blossom separately before mixing the two medicinal liquids together. However, she had been unable to do so. Now, it seemed that the little fish scale flower wanted her to put the petals of both flowers into the pill furnace at the same time. Would that work? One must know that in the pill recipe that Qingju gave her, it was written that the two ingredients should be put in separately. Seeing Lung Ruoxu's suspicious look, the little fish-scaled flower spirit assured her, "Sister, just believe me this once. I'm sure my plan will work. Then let's try it." Seeing the little fish-scale flower's confident look, Lung Ruoxu did not want to hurt his self-confidence. After all, this little fellow did it all for her. Seeing that Lung Ruoxu had agreed, the little fish-scale flower was very happy. It felt that it could finally do something for its sister. However, when it looked at Lung Ruoxu's eyes, there was a trace of unknown meaning. "Sister, the temperature in the furnace is high enough. Quickly throw our flower petals in." "All right." Lung Ruoxu was not suspicious of him. She found the right time to throw two similarly red flower petals that were emitting different auras into the furnace that had been warming up for a long time. However, just as she threw the two flower petals into the furnace, the small fish scale flower turned into a stream of light and jumped into the furnace. Chapter 2080, Voluntarily Sacrificed, Two Little Fish. When Lung Ruoxu saw this, she turned pale with fright. She hurriedly tried to extinguish the fire in the furnace, but the little fellow who was fighting with the blood cherry blossom petals for the highest position in the furnace smiled at Lung Ruoxu and stopped her. "Sister, don't waste all your efforts. Otherwise, my sacrifice will be in vain." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxu's beautiful eyes could not help but tear up. Her tears flowed uncontrollably as her heart ached. This was definitely not a situation she wanted to see. Although she wanted to cure her senior brother, she could not sacrifice these adorable little fellows as the price. When the little fish scale flower spirit saw this, it quickly coaxed, "Big sister, don't cry. This is the destiny of our treasures. I'm very happy to be able to help you save Brother Bingyao." Yes, he was willing to sacrifice himself to cure Brother Bingyao, who he had never met before, because he didn't want to see his sister frowning all day long. He wanted her to be happy. If he could help his sister, he would be very happy. However, Lung Ruoxu listened to the little fish scale flower spirit's words and stubbornly wanted to put out the fire. Although these little fellows called her big sister, she treated them as her own children. She had always been working hard to provide these cute little children with a carefree living environment. Therefore, she absolutely did not want to see such a situation happening. At this moment, two streams of tears flowed down the little fish-scaled flower spirit's face. He looked at Lung Ruoxu longingly and said in a choked voice, "Sister, don't. I'm doing this willingly. It's the greatest wish of all elves to be able to do something for Big Sister. Please fulfill my wish, Big Sister. Elder Sister, please help him." Qingju appeared in the alchemy room of the purple bamboo house. The small fire ginseng and the others also appeared with him. "Sister, if it were me, I would also be willing to sacrifice." The small fire ginseng also said, "Mom, there's still me." Little Fire Lotus also expressed his opinion. "Big Sister, we are already very satisfied that our precious materials can cultivate into human form. If you want us to sacrifice ourselves now, we are very willing." The 10,000-year-old dragon's beard grass said, "Girl, you should respect little you heir's choice." Lil Fire also opened its mouth to speak, but that pair of fiery red eyes were somewhat wet. How could the other little fellows not be the same? However, this was the fish scale flower spirit's own choice. Fairies were the darlings of nature, and they believed in letting nature take its course. As such, they could only respect the fish scale flower spirit's decision and could not object to it. Even though they would feel sad for losing such a small friend, they could not stop it. As for Lung Ruoxue, when she heard the words of these little fellows, her heart felt extremely heavy and sorrowful. When she saw the determined look on the little fish-scale flower spirit's face, her heart ached even more. These little fellows were her children. However, now that she had to sacrifice herself to cure her senior brother, how could she bear this? At this moment, the blood cherry blossom petals in the pill furnace seemed to have sensed that the end of the world was coming. They actually started to move. Seeing this, the little fish-scale flower spirit looked at Lung Ruoxue longingly. Then, without any hesitation, it turned into a stream of light and attached itself to the blood cherry blossom petals that had not completely melted. It continued to fight with the blood cherry blossom petals. Little you. Seeing the fish-scale flower spirit's actions, Lung Ruoxue cried out. Her heart was bleeding as she bit her lower lip. Tears flowed uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. When the other little fellows saw this scene, they also looked at the pill furnace with tears in their eyes. After a long time, the blood cherry blossom in the pill furnace finally became obedient and slowly turned into a pool of liquid. The fish scale petals that were surrounded by spirit chi were also slowly melting. Seeing this, they all knew that the little fish scale flower spirit had succeeded. His sacrifice had been worth it. Suddenly, the fish scale flower spirit's voice sounded out from within the pill furnace. Big sister, quickly throw in the other herbs. This time, the fish scale flower spirit's voice was much weaker. Little you, can you come out now? Upon hearing this voice, Lung Ruoxue asked, unwilling to give up. Sister, there's no other way. If I leave now, all my previous efforts will be in vain. Quickly throw the other herbs in. While I still have a trace of spiritual intelligence, it'll help you refine the pill. The little fish-scaled flower spirit's pale face appeared in the pill furnace. Lung Ruoxue and the other children's hearts ached when they saw this. Lung Ruoxue's hands trembled nonstop. She had no choice. When Qingju saw this, he could only help Lung Ruoxue throw the other medicinal herbs into the pill furnace. In an instant, all of the medicinal ingredients had melted, and the aura of the small fish-scale flower was also gradually disappearing. When Qingju saw this, he couldn't help but loudly remind, Sister, it's time to form the pill. Following that, a delicate fragrance wafted out from the pill refining room. Lung Ruoxue endured her heartache and cast a few spells. After a while, the medicinal fragrance became even stronger and shook everyone's hearts. They knew that this was all thanks to the little fish-scale flower spirit. And if these elves were willing to be refined into medicinal pills, the medicinal effects would also be doubled. However, even though they had successfully refined the pill, it was a pity that no one was happy. Especially Lung Ruoxue. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she sat in front of the pill furnace in a daze. Even the pills were collected by Qingju for her. At this moment, she did not want to think about anything else. After keeping the pills, Qingju looked at Lung Ruoxue, who seemed to have lost her soul. He sighed and then moved the evildoer from the outside into the bracelet. Evildoer, who was bickering with Song, was slightly surprised to see himself in the alchemy room of the purple bamboo house. After a while, he noticed Lung Ruoxue's strange behavior and quickly ran to her side, pulling the dazed Lung Ruoxue into his arms. What's wrong with Xue? The evil demon's heart ached when he saw Lung Ruoxue's tear-stained face. He could not help but emit a cold aura as he stared at Qingju and questioned him. Little you, is dead. Qingju explained straightforwardly. Little fish, that little fish scale flower? The demon was stunned for a moment before he replied. However, he was tactful and did not ask Qingju how that little flower died. After all, Looking at Shui's current appearance, he could guess a thing or two. Yes. Qingju nodded and then shouted, "Damn it! Quickly put away your cold energy. These little guys don't like it." In fact, not only did those little fellows not like it, they simply couldn't stand it. Look, just a slight release of the devilish cold air. These little children were all scared to the point that their faces turned pale and their small bodies kept shaking. And among these children, the only one who was not afraid of the evildoer was probably that little fire lotus. After all, little fire lotus called the evildoer daddy. So, after the evildoer appeared, little fire lotus also threw himself into the evildoer's arms with tears in his eyes and began to cry loudly. Seeing this, Qingju had no choice but to take the other children out of the alchemy room, leaving the family of 3 here. Looking at Lung Ruoxue, who was in a dazed state, as well as little Huoyan, who was bawling his eyes out, the evildoer felt extremely helpless. He could only hug them in silence until little Huoyan had enough of crying. Only then did he tell the evildoer what had happened while choking with sobs. After the evildoer had finished listening, he could not help but sigh. No wonder Shui was so sad. She would never have thought that she would have to sacrifice Xiao Yu to cure Bing Yao. Chapter 2081. Voluntarily Sacrifice 3. Dad. This is the destiny of our natural treasures, and to be able to refine pills for the people we like is our greatest honor. After explaining the whole situation, little Fire Lotus couldn't help but sigh. Yes, their destiny was to sacrifice, and whether the sacrifice was worth it, it could only depend on their luck. If it was for the person they liked, to them, it would be the most perfect ending. Therefore, little Fire Lotus could empathize with the feelings of the fish scale flower spirit. If it was him, if his mother needed it, he would also be willing to sacrifice himself. However, it didn't dare to say such words out loud. Otherwise, its mother and father would be angry. In contrast to the slightly lower air pressure in the alchemy room, the atmosphere in the space was also unusually dull. Most of the elves and orcs were silent. Seeing this, Chung Wu, who did not know what was going on, did not dare to speak loudly. No one or orcs were willing to tell him what had happened. The first elder, who had not come out of the refining room for a long time, also came out with a suspicious look. He was here to look for Qingju because Qingju had not gone in to look for him for a long time. However, when he came out to take a look, he suddenly realized that something seemed to have happened that he did not know about. However, those who obviously knew the truth were not willing to pay attention to him. When he wanted to ask Chung Wu about the situation, he realized that Chung Wu was also at a loss. At this moment, Song, who was staying in the guest house with the master of the Ning family, also showed a state of anxiety. As for Cold One's frustration, the most direct display was scratching the wall. The master of the Ning family looked at his most beautiful and luxurious guest house, which was now full of holes, and held his forehead in depression. Even the most diligent maintenance team of the Ning family could not keep up with the speed of destruction. Basically, after repairing a place, it would be destroyed beyond recognition in a short time. The staff in charge of the repair could be said to be full of complaints about this. However, they had been warned by their families long ago, so they did not dare to express their thoughts. In the end, it was the kind master of the Ning family who let them stop the maintenance. Only then did the staff in charge of the maintenance really breathe a sigh of relief and be free. After sending the maintenance team away, only Master Ning and Tsang stayed in the guest house. Since the disappearance of the evildoer, Tsang's temper had grown day by day. Over time, even if Master Ning was slow, he also felt that something was wrong. On a certain day, the master of the Ning family calmly sat down next to Tsang, who was scratching the wall, and asked gently, "Senior Tsang, what's wrong with you these days? Are you in a bad mood?" In fact, what he wanted to ask was whether the old man was going through menopause. Otherwise, why would he be so restless? Yes, Tsang didn't even raise his head, and his claws on the wall didn't stop. Caw, caw. His voice echoed in the ears of the man and the beast. Can you tell me? The master of the Ning family probed. In fact, he was quite bored these days. Shui and the great elder were not here, and there was no one to talk to him. As for the evildoer and Song, he couldn't count on them. These two guys would fight whenever they saw each other. There was no room for him to intervene between them. He could have treated their fight as a show to kill time, but now, because of the sudden disappearance of the evildoer, he couldn't see them. Because of this, Song only cared about scratching the wall and didn't care about him. Thinking of this, Master Ning's depression could not be described in words. I don't know. These words were said through gritted teeth, and his tone was quite fierce and resentful, which stunned the master of the Ning family. You don't know? You don't know, and you're in a bad mood? It looked like he was really going through menopause. Was this good? The master of the Ning family was in a dilemma. Following that, he heard Azure say with a bitter expression, Neo is in a bad mood, so my mood is also bad. Arg, what's wrong with Shui? The master of the Ning family was shocked and asked with concern. I don't know. I didn't recognize her as my master, so I could only sense that she was in a terrible mood, but I didn't know why. Woo, Neo doesn't want me anymore. I tried to call her, but she ignored me. Song choked with sobs. His originally pitch-black eyes were filled with tears. When Master Ning saw this, his heart clenched. Although he wanted to comfort Song, he didn't know what had happened. Even if he wanted to comfort him, he didn't know where to start. More importantly, after hearing Song's words, he started to worry about Lung Ruoxue. What exactly had happened to make Song feel that Shui was in a bad mood? Could it be that little brat Yes disappearance was also related to this matter? Thinking of this possibility, the master of the Ning family sighed again and again. Hearing his sigh, Song's mood became even worse, and his sobs sounded in their ears from time to time. Senior Song, do you have a way to contact Qingju? Ask him and you'll know, right? After thinking for a long time, the master of the Ning family suggested. He also ignored me. Woo! Master Ning's words made Azure's mood even more depressed. It knew that something must have happened, but no one was willing to tell it that it had been forgotten. This fact made its mood sink to the bottom. With this thought, the wall was unlucky again. Listening to the moans in his ears, as well as the occasional low cry, the master of the Ning family felt his head hurt. What should he do? Suddenly, Azure, who had been scratching the wall, went crazy again. All the hair on its body stood up, and the chi on its body exploded. Seeing this, the master of the Ning family immediately jumped out of the danger zone. And then he heard a boom. With a loud sound, the houses in the guest house collapsed one after another like dominoes. This huge commotion had also attracted the attention of the second elder and the others. Looking at the ruined guest house, everyone's forehead was full of black lines. What kind of madness was Senior Song up to? The level of madness had actually advanced. He had been scratching the wall all the time. Although the beauty of the house had been destroyed, at least the house was still there. But now, the entire house had collapsed. It was impossible to repair it. He could only rebuild it. Just thinking about how much money they would have to spend to rebuild the house, the elders' hearts ached. However, they didn't dare to ask Senior Song for compensation. Otherwise, the entire Ning family might be in danger. After the destruction, Azure's mood improved a little, and he considerately took out a storage ring from his previous collection and handed it to the second elder as compensation. The second elder took the ring and looked at it. He was so scared that his face turned pale. The other elders looked at his expression and were very surprised. They couldn't help but wonder if the money Senior Song gave was not enough to rebuild the guest house. In fact, it didn't matter if it wasn't enough. They didn't intend to let Senior Song pay for it. And when they heard the second elder say that the compensation Senior Song gave was enough to rebuild the entire Ning family's main residence, they were just as scared as the second elder, their faces pale. Could it be that Senior Song wanted them to rebuild the entire Ning family's main residence? With this thought in mind, the second elder first held a small meeting with the other elders and discussed it. They came to an important conclusion. Senior Song indeed had such intentions. Then, they told the Ning family master the result of the elders' discussion, and with the tacit consent of the master, The clansmen living in the Ning family's main residence began to prepare to move without a sound. However, Song, who was ready to explode at any moment, didn't know anything. It would never have thought that the storage ring it had given to the second elder of the Ning family would cause such a huge chain reaction. Until a few days later, when Lung Ruoxue and the demon came out of the bangle together, Song's mood started to improve. Seeing its future master whom it had missed for a long time, Azure took a big step forward and threw itself into Lung Ruoxue's arms. It refused to get up and stared at Lung Ruoxue with a face full of hidden bitterness. Its black eyes were filled with tears as it stared at Lung Ruoxue. Those wet black eyes were filled with deep accusation. "Girl, you're a bad guy. How can you abandon me?" Song choked as he complained. "I'm sorry, there was an accident." Looking at Song's dirty body, it was obvious that he had cried. The fine hair on his face and body were all tangled together. Lung Ruoxue said guiltily. She knew that Song was worried about her. However, for the past few days, she had not been able to adjust her mood. Her entire person was in a dazed and soulless sealed state. She did not want to think about anything and did not want to do anything. His mind went blank. Her heart was also in pain. After a long period of time, coupled with the silent company, care, and support of the evildoer, her mood finally adjusted a little. Although she was still sad, at least she would not shut herself in like she did a few days ago. "Girl, you still have me." Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Azure didn't ask her what had happened. Instead, it reminded her of its existence. It didn't want to be excluded anymore. It didn't feel good. Chapter 2082, Bingio's Dilemma 1. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head. She still had Song and many other relatives and Beastie. Furthermore, her condition these few days had made them very worried. Hence, it was time for her to pull herself together. As for Xiaoyu, although she was willing to sacrifice herself, all of this was also caused by Wu Jing. Therefore, she blamed it on Wu Jing. Fog Ice. Sooner or later, she would take revenge for her master and little Yu. She would not let their sacrifice be in vain. Thinking of this, she raised her head and was about to look for her godfather to tell him about her next plan. Only then did she realize that the guest house she was in seemed to be under construction. No, to be precise, they were rebuilding. Although the ruins of the guest house had long been cleaned up, there was only the frame of a house in front of her. Her godfather was standing not far away, looking at her with a worried face. "Shui, Feeling Lung Ruoxue's gaze, Master Ning called out in embarrassment. He seemed to have been caught peeking at Shui. Oh, it was really awkward. "Godfather, what about this house?" Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with suspicion. Even though she wanted to ask if the reconstruction of the house was because of Song, she could not bring herself to ask this question. Song did not look guilty at all and was rather calm. In this case, she could not just pin this bad thing on Song. "Hee, the house is a little old, so I'm going to rebuild it while you're not around," the Ning family's master said with a smile. This was the excuse that the Ning family had discussed a long time ago. They definitely couldn't let Song feel anything wrong, and they couldn't let Lung Ruoxue see anything wrong. Otherwise, Shui would feel guilty. "Oh." Lung Ruoxue nodded her head lightly and didn't continue asking. She then told her godfather directly, "Godfather, senior brother's antidote has been made. I plan to go back tomorrow." "All right, he'll go back with you," the master of the Ning family said. He was really worried about Shui. He hadn't forgotten that Song had said that Shui was in a bad mood. However, when he saw Shui come out, he didn't dare to ask, afraid that it would hurt her. "AI, if there's a chance, I'd better ask that brat Yi," he thought to himself. The next day, before Lung Ruoxue and the rest left, Second Elder led the other elders to send them off. When she saw their reluctant expressions as they looked at Song, she felt helpless. They probably couldn't bear to part with their godfather as well. However, she didn't dare to say this out loud, for fear that it would make her godfather sad. After they set out, they returned to the foot of the mountain in the land of demons in less than half a day. Lung Ruoxue moved Cheng Wu and the first elder out of the bangle. and the four of them and one beast walked back to the mountain. Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia had sensed their auras and were waiting at the entrance. Sung greeted them when he saw them. "Two little fellows, are you all right?" Good." When the two of them heard how the little guy addressed them, black lines appeared on their foreheads. However, they still replied very enthusiastically. "I missed you guys so much." Song sighed. "We missed you too," Uncle Dragon and Ao Jia quickly said. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue, who saw them being so polite, couldn't stand it and said, "Go in. Let's not chat at the door. Right? Come in quickly. I've specially asked someone to prepare some food for you." When Uncle Long heard this, it was as if he had heard a pardon. Before Lung Ruoxue returned, she had already sent him a voice transmission saying that she would be back today. Hence, he had hurriedly instructed his men to prepare food and had been waiting for them for a long time. After they entered the courtyard, Uncle Long brought Lung Ruoxue and the others to the dining hall. After the meal, the group moved to the garden. Lung Ruoxue told Uncle Long and the others that Senior Bing Yao's antidote had been successfully concocted. Uncle Long and the others were overjoyed when they heard that. Then, they went to the endless ocean with Lung Ruoxue. When they arrived at Uncle Long's residence in the endless ocean, they fed the antidote to Bing Yao. However, Bing Yao didn't wake up immediately. Lung Ruoxue, the demon, and Uncle Long had no choice but to stay in the endless ocean and wait for Bing Yao to wake up. During this time, Lung Ruoxue did not dare to leave Bing Yao's side. After all, she was not 100% sure if the antidote would be able to cure her senior brother. However, she trusted Qing Zhu and Xiao Yu. She also believed that Xiao Yu would not sacrifice herself for nothing. Therefore, she kept her eyes on Bing Yao, afraid that her senior brother would feel any discomfort. However, after consuming the antidote, her senior brother's condition had been very stable and he did not continue to bleed. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue was slightly relieved. 3 days later, Bing Yao's injuries were healed, and he finally woke up. "Shui, where am I?" After he woke up, Bing Yao quickly asked Lung Ruoxue when he saw her. Lung Ruoxue had already returned to her original appearance and was no longer a man with a girl's heart. "Senior brother, you're at Uncle Long's house in the Heartless Sea." Lung Ruoxue chuckled as she explained. "The Endless Sea? Uncle Long? Could it be the one from the Endless Sea?" Bing Yao was a little surprised. How did Shui know that person? Although he rarely moved around the divine realm these few years, he had done a detailed investigation of the various forces in the divine realm in recent years. He naturally knew of Uncle Long's great name. But at the same time, he also knew that Uncle Long was a low-profile beast who had been living in seclusion for many years. He did not expect Shui to know him. Therefore, other than being surprised, he was even more curious. However, before he could ask Lung Ruoxue about the details, Uncle Long and the demon had already walked to his side. Looking at Bing Yao, Uncle Long suppressed his excitement and asked, "Bing Yao, do you still remember me?" "And you are." Looking at the familiar Uncle Long, Bing Yao thought hard. However, he wasn't good at remembering people's faces, so he couldn't figure out who this person was. More importantly, this person seemed to know him. "I'm Uncle Long. We have met once before. You were still very young at that time, so you probably don't remember me anymore." Uncle Long was very considerate and took the initiative to give Bing Yao an out. After all, he couldn't just say that his memory was bad, so he didn't remember him. "I really don't remember, but you look familiar. So we've really met before." Bing Yao laughed heartlessly. Lung Ruoxue's mouth twitched when she heard Bing Yao's reply. This senior brother was too naive. Fortunately, it was Uncle Long who said this. If it was someone else, wouldn't senior brother Xiaobai fall into his trap? One had to know that this was the most common method of hitting on people in the world she was in her previous life. However, even though her mind was running wild, she believed that Uncle Long and her senior brother must have met before. Otherwise, he and Ao Jia would not have been so excited to see her senior brother. When Uncle Long heard what Bing Yao said, he nodded and said, "We've been looking for you." Chapter 2083, Bingio's Dilemma, Looking for me? Why are you looking for me? Do I owe you money? Bing Yao said with a puzzled face. This time, no matter how happy and calm Uncle Long was, he was also in a mess. On the other hand, Lung Ruoxue was even more certain that her senior brother was not just an ordinary white. How could she have thought that she owed someone money? Could it be that senior brother had borrowed money from many people? Of course, Bing Yao did not know about Lung Ruoxue's guess. However, he looked at Uncle Long with suspicion. Uncle Long's mouth twitched when he saw this, and he spoke again. You don't owe me money. We came to you in the hope of avenging Master Yu. However, we searched for many years but couldn't find your whereabouts. Our strength was limited. So after we couldn't get revenge, we chose to live in seclusion. Oh, but I don't remember you being my master's subordinates. Bing Yao's handsome face was filled with confusion. We are indeed not Master Ye's subordinates, but our desire to avenge Master Yu is no less than his subordinates. Once we also established an organization in private, but we didn't have a backbone. After many failed attempts at revenge, some people's hearts began to slacken. Therefore, the organization had to be disbanded and we went into seclusion. Uncle Long explained simply. So, you're saying that you came looking for me back then because you hoped that I would lead you to avenge your master? Bing Yao finally understood. He looked at Uncle Long with a gentle gaze. He knew that his master had a lot of loyal followers and fans in the divine world. However, these followers and fans who were not acknowledged by his master were willing to take revenge for his master. Even if they failed, they were still worthy of his respect. Uncle Long nodded after Bing Yao finished. Seeing this, Bing Yao was extremely excited. Because of this, Bing Yao and Uncle Long became closer. The two of them had even forgotten about Lung Ruoxue and started chatting affectionately. Seeing them chatting as if there was no one else around, Lung Ruoxue and the demon looked at each other helplessly, and the two of them left tactfully. Uncle Long and Bing Yao talked about many things from the past, especially about Master Ye's past. The atmosphere was very lively. By the time they realized that Lung Ruoxue and the demon had disappeared, it was already late at night. The two of them walked out of the room and happened to see Lung Ruoxue playing with a little dolphin. Uncle Long had never seen this little dolphin before, so it was obvious that it had just been born not long ago. Where did this little fellow come from? Uncle Long asked the little dolphin in a low voice so that it wouldn't be frightened. However, when the little dolphin saw Uncle Long, it instinctively trembled and immediately hid in Lung Ruoxue's arms. Upon seeing this, Uncle Long was helpless. Was he that fierce? He had always been very kind to these little guys in the endless sea. Okay, the old dolphin brought it. Lung Ruoxue caressed the little dolphin's smooth and tender skin as she chuckled. That old man is here? Uncle Long asked. Yes, but seeing that Uncle Long was busy, it left tactfully. As for this little fellow, it kept sticking to me after seeing me, so the old dolphin had no choice but to let it stay. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Once Blue, who was lying on her shoulder, heard this, she immediately bared her teeth and scared the little dolphin. Damn it, it actually dared to fight for its favor, wasn't it courting death? However, in front of its future master, it couldn't show an expression that it couldn't wait to get rid of that eyesore, or else Neo would definitely be angry. But what made it depressed was that the little fellow was not afraid of it at all. Damn it, it was much more capable than the old whale, but this little dolphin was only afraid of the old whale and didn't take it seriously at all. This fact made it feel quite aggrieved. However, it couldn't possibly argue with an insensible child. AI, just thinking about it, made him depressed. Hee. Shui Air's affinity with the beasts is something that the beasts cannot refuse. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words and glancing at the depressed song, Uncle Long smiled and spoke. Lung Ruoxue couldn't deny Uncle Long's words, because many of her beasts had said the same thing. Then, she turned her beautiful eyes to Bing Yao and asked with concern, Senior brother, do you feel any discomfort? I'm fine, Shui. Sorry to trouble you. He had heard from Uncle Long that Shui had gone to the Divine Master's manor in order to get the antidote for him. No one knew better than him how dangerous the Divine Master's manner was. However, it was all thanks to someone's help that she was able to get the petals of the ice fog. Thinking of this, Bing Yao turned his gaze to Tsang. He wanted to thank Xia Tsang, but he didn't even look at him. This fact made him very conflicted. While his master was still alive, he had heard that Tsang's temperament was uncertain, and his emotions were unpredictable. However, he didn't expect that it would actually take a fancy to Shui. This was definitely good news for him. As he thought of this, he had already walked over to Lung Ruoxu's side. He looked at Tsang and took the initiative to speak. Tsang, thank you for saving my life. Tisk, who needs your thanks? I didn't do it to save you. Tsang Zhen told the truth, and the truth was often hurtful, so Bing Yao was hit hard. Looking at Bing Yao's troubled and darkened face, Lung Ruoxu burst out laughing. Her laughter attracted Bing Yao's angry gaze, but at the same time, he felt two strong forces coming towards him. Suddenly, Bing Yao held his breath and looked at Lung Ruoxu pitifully, then found a place to draw circles. Sob. A child with someone protecting him was a treasure, and a child without someone protecting him was a blade of grass. And now, Shui was the treasure in his eyes, and he was naturally the poor blade of grass with no one to rely on. In addition, he couldn't help but roar in his heart. What's so great about people with backing? He was indeed amazing. Whoa! This fact made Bing Yao feel depressed, worried, and a little mad. However, he had no place to vent his emotions, because he couldn't afford to offend the two people who had caused him this. Whoa! The more Bing Yao thought about it, the more he felt sorry for himself. After all, he was once the second generation of an official, but now he was going to be bullied by those two unscrupulous guys, and there was a junior sister watching the fun from the side, laughing so hard that she couldn't stop. Sob, you can't be such a bully. At this moment, Uncle Long walked up with a face full of sympathy and patted Bing Yao's shoulder to comfort him. He didn't know what to say. AI, poor Bing Yao. He had no status in front of a certain someone. He then turned to Lung Ruoxu and said, Shui, let's go back. Otherwise, my family will be worried. Yes. Lung Ruoxu nodded slightly. Then, she sent the little dolphin, who was reluctant to part with her, back to the dolphin clan. They then returned to their home in the land of demons. Chapter 2084, Bingio's Dilemma 3. When they arrived at the Lung family's main house, the crowd greeted Bing Yao warmly. At this time, Bing Yao finally felt that he had some status in front of these people. Everyone's concern for him also made him feel good. Although he kept emphasizing that his injuries were all healed, everyone was still worried and let him rest for a few more days. A few days later, Bing Yao looked great. With Uncle Long's approval, he was finally able to leave his room and get out of prison. The first thing he did after he was released was to look for Lung Ruoxu. However, he couldn't find Shui, even after walking around a few times. He had no choice but to grab Uncle Long and ask, Uncle Long, have you seen Shui? I didn't see her, but Shui is in a bad mood. You should leave her alone. Uncle Long sighed and said helplessly. On the second day after they returned, he had dragged that brat Yi to understand the matter clearly. After knowing this, his mood was more or less affected. Such an adorable little doll was gone just like that. It was really a pity. One had to know that he had even carried that little fellow before. Why are you in a bad mood? Bing Yao didn't understand. Shui was fine a few days ago. Why are you in a bad mood all of a sudden? He could not understand. In reality, Lung Ruoxu acted as if nothing had happened a few days ago because she was afraid that Uncle Long and the others would be worried. Although she had adjusted her emotions, there were still times when she would still think of the cute little fish and her heart would still ache. Therefore, after treating her senior brother, she entered the bracelet again, wanting to accompany the little fish. At this time, Tsang, who was lying in Uncle Long's arms, looked at Bing Yao, who was confused. He couldn't help but sneer. It's all because of a certain idiot. Looking at the unfriendly Tsang, Bing Yao had an idea. Was he the idiot he was referring to? However, he also knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of Tsang, so he could only turn his gaze to Uncle Long. Seeing this, Uncle Long sighed again. Then, he told Bing Yao what had happened. After hearing it, Bing Yao was silent. This was a fact that he had never thought of. At the same time, he felt a little guilty. He knew very well how difficult it was to cultivate with heavenly treasures. However, a little fellow whom he had never met before had sacrificed himself to refine an antidote for him. This made him feel very upset. After a long silence, Bing Yao turned around and left the garden without a word. He went back to his room and summoned Qing Ju loudly. Then, he was moved into the bracelet. Looking at the little boy in front of him, Bing Yao quickly asked, "Where's Shui-er? Where is he?" "Sister is in the herb garden." After Qing Ju finished speaking, he disappeared. He did not want to see anyone now. After hearing Qing Ju's location, Bing Yao headed straight for the herb garden. However, he did not find Lung Ruoxue. In fact, the herb garden was divided into an inner garden and an outer garden. Most of the herbs in the outer garden were ordinary herbs, while most of the herbs in the inner garden were heavenly and earthly treasures. Some of the poisonous herbs were arranged to be planted in other places by Qing Ju. As for Bing Yao, he was only in the outer garden of the herb garden. Naturally, he would not be able to find Lung Ruoxue. Just as Bing Yao was looking for Lung Ruoxue like a headless fly, a chubby little kid suddenly appeared in front of him. He glanced at him and said, "Brother Qing Ju asked me to bring you to see my sister." "Thank you," Bing Yao said softly. He didn't know what this little guy's true form was, but the strong spiritual qi around him made him very clear that this little boy was also the spirit of a treasure. Entering the inner garden, Bing Yao was surprised to find that there were many children in front of him. He didn't know most of them. It seemed that Shui-er's garden had a lot of new members while he was away. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue was standing in front of a withered flower. The flower was about half the height of a person, and its leaves were shaped like fish scales. The huge flower head was lowered, and it was obvious that the flower had suffered a lot of damage. When Bing Yao saw the tree, he knew that it was the fish scale flower that saved him. "Shui-er." Bing Yao walked to Lung Ruoxue's side and called out softly, "Senior brother, why have you come?" Lung Ruoxue was a little surprised to see Bing Yao. She did not plan to let her senior brother know about this, so that he would not feel pressured. However, it seemed like her senior brother knew everything. Bing Yao didn't answer Lung Ruoxue's question. Instead, he walked to the side of the withered fish scale flower and caressed its yellow leaves. He said gratefully, "Little guy, thank you for saving me. I really don't know how to thank you, but don't worry, I will take good care of your body in the future and wait for you to cultivate a spirit body again." Although he wasn't an alchemist and didn't know much about herbs, he felt that since the fish scale flower in front of him had formed a spirit body, it shouldn't die so easily. The current state of the fish scale flower should be a form of self-protection after the plant was severely damaged. He believed that in time, the fish scale flower would definitely be able to form a spirit body again, but this would take time. When Lung Ruoxue heard what Bing Yao said, she looked at him in shock and asked anxiously, "Senior brother, what did you say?" I just feel that the fish scale flower spirit won't die so easily. I feel that he will come back to life." Looking at the excited Lung Ruoxue, Bing Yao said nervously. He didn't know if his thoughts were right, but he seemed to have heard his master say something similar before. However, he had never paid much attention to such things, so he wasn't very sure. However, when Lung Ruoxue heard her senior brother's words, she was still excited for a long time. After a long while, she remembered that she had to ask Qing Ju. After summoning Qing Ju, Lung Ruoxue said directly, "Qing Ju, can the little fish be resurrected?" After she finished speaking, Lung Ruoxue stared at Qing Ju, afraid that he would say no. When Qing Ju saw this, he secretly glared at Bing Yao and could only sigh helplessly. In fact, in theory, Xiaoyu was indeed not really dead. After all, his original body was still around. However, he could not be sure if Xiaoyu could be resurrected because he had never seen anything like this before. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult to resurrect Xiaoyu. First, he had to save his original body. However, with the extent of the damage to the fish scale flower, it would be extremely difficult to resurrect his original body. At least, he had no confidence at all. He did not tell his sister about this because he was afraid that he would disappoint her even more if he gave her too much hope. Therefore, he would not say anything before he had absolute confidence. However, everything was ruined by that idiot Bing Yao. He was so angry that he wanted to bite Bing Yao. This useless idiot. At this moment, Qing Ju's evaluation of Bing Yao had hit rock bottom. However, Lung Ruoxue did not give Qing Ju and Bing Yao the chance to continue their flirtatious gazes. She carried Qing Ju and looked into his dark eyes. She asked again in a serious tone, "Qing Ju, is there any possibility of Xiaoyu being resurrected? In theory, there is. However, it's very difficult to actually do it because it's already very difficult for his main body to survive." After thinking for a while, Qing Ju decided to tell the truth. He did not want his sister to have endless fantasies. That would not be beneficial to her cultivation. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she could only sigh softly before saying, "Qing Ju, no matter what method you use, you have to try. It would be best if little you can be resurrected, but if that doesn't work, we can't force her. I'm relieved that sister thinks this way," Qing Ju said with satisfaction. He was very impressed with Lung Ruoxue's attitude. Only with the mentality of not being forced and to adapt to the situation would one's path of cultivation be smoother and smoother. Hence, he had high hopes for Lung Ruoxue. As for that stupid Bing Yao, forget it. As he thought of this, Qing Ju turned to look at Bing Yao. He then looked at him fastidiously and said, "You big idiot, be more careful in the future and do what you can. Otherwise, no one might be able to save you the next time you get injured." Qing Ju's words were rather impolite, and Bing Yao's face turned red. Then, he mumbled and promised with an embarrassed face, "You'll be careful in the future. If there's anything you can do for the fish scale flower, please tell me. I'll do my best. Oomph. You won't be able to escape, don't worry," Qing Ju said impolitely. After he finished speaking, he disappeared without another word. After Qing Ju left, Bing Yao couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat off his forehead. He was still in a state of shock. He couldn't help but think to himself, Qing Ju is getting more and more imposing. As expected of the weapon spirit of an innate divine weapon, even he felt a trace of pressure. However, it seemed that he was losing his position in front of Qing Ju. Thinking of this, he really wanted to cry, but had no tears. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue glanced at the depressed Bing Yao and patted his head to comfort him. She smiled and said, "Senior brother, calm down. Qing Ju doesn't have any ill intentions." "I know," Bing Yao nodded, but he still had a conflicted expression on his face. Furthermore, there was one more thing that he didn't know if he should tell Shui now. If Qing Ju and the rest found out, they would probably blame him again, right? He thought about it, and was having an intense battle in his heart. Lung Ruoxue saw how her senior brother was and guessed that he had something to say. However, she did not rush him. Instead, she stood there and waited quietly. Chapter 2085, Azure Special Training 1. After waiting for a long time, Bing Yao was still in a dilemma. Lung Ruoxue couldn't take it anymore, so she asked directly, "Senior brother, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't stammer, it's not like you." Shui looking at Lung Ruoxue, Bing Yao's expression turned awkward. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. "Senior brother, could it be that you have something you can't tell me?" When Lung Ruoxue saw Bing Yao's state, her beautiful eyes started to look at him, making him feel uncomfortable. In the end, Bing Yao decided to make a decision. "Shui I have junior brother's whereabouts." "Junior brother?" Lung Ruoxue was stunned when she heard these two words. She then reacted. The junior brother that senior brother was referring to should be her second senior brother, right? At this moment, Qing Ju, who had been paying attention to the situation, appeared again. He stared at Bing Yao nervously and asked, "You know where Qing Yang is?" And Bing Yao nodded. His expression finally returned to normal after he spoke. "Where is he? Quickly tell me." Seeing how slow Bing Yao was, Qing Ju said with a look of disappointment. He was so anxious and really wanted to beat Bing Yao up. However, since he had just recovered from a serious illness, he would let go. In the Divine Master's estate, he fell into the hands of Wu Yin and was locked up in the space that Master had opened up. I was injured the last time because I wanted to sneak in and save him. Who knew that I would be discovered by Wu Yin? Not only did I not manage to save Qing Yang, but I also got injured. Bing Yao explained in a lonely voice. His handsome face was full of depression. "Oomph, you really have a pig's brain. Don't you know how strong Wu Xian is? He actually dared to barge into the Divine Lord's estate. You should be grateful that you were able to escape. Otherwise, the Divine Realm will have another missing person." After hearing what Bing Yao said, Qing Ju did not pity him. Instead, he mocked him. I didn't expect her strength to improve so quickly. In the past, I could even fight her to a draw. Bing Yao said a little embarrassedly. His face was full of shame. Although he knew that Qing Ju was good at talking, it was a different feeling to experience it for himself. The past is the past. Besides, how long ago was that? If her strength didn't improve at all, she wouldn't have been able to sit on the Divine Master's position. Just those people who came wave after wave to kill her would be enough to make her suffer. Qing Ju continued to speak impolitely, and Bing Yao was left speechless by his words. He could not deny that Qing Ju was right. He had indeed been careless and underestimated his enemy. Thinking of this, his face suddenly burned, and he lowered his head like a child who had made a mistake. Lung Ruoxue could not bear to see this and said, "Qing Ju, don't blame senior brother anymore. He's also anxious to save second senior brother. I can understand his feelings." She sounded very understanding. In fact, she was thinking the same thing. The two of them had been together for many years, and they had a deep relationship. Therefore, she could understand senior brother Bing Yao's desire to save second senior brother. If it were her, she would do the same thing to save her family who was captured and might even be suffering. At that time, no one could truly calm down. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Bing Yao gave her a grateful look. Then, like a child who had done something wrong, he continued to lower his head. After telling Shui about this, he felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. It felt great to have someone to share his burden. Bing Yao couldn't help but think. Even after knowing where second senior brother was, Lung Ruoxue did not make a decision immediately. She needed to discuss this with Uncle Long and the others. With that in mind, Lung Ruoxue had an idea and brought Bing Yao out of the bracelet. When he arrived at the garden, Uncle Long and the others happened to be there. When they saw Lung Ruoxue, the few of them heaved a sigh of relief. The demon who was chatting with them pointed at the seat beside him, indicating for Shui to sit down. After sitting down, Lung Ruoxue prepared her words before telling everyone what Bing Yao had told her. They were all shocked. Uncle Long even grabbed Bing Yao's arm and asked, "Are you sure Qing Yang is in the Divine Master's estate?" Previously, I disguised myself and sneaked into the Divine Master's estate. I even worked as a guard there for a period of time. This matter was also unintentionally heard by a trusted subordinate of Wu Xian. After that, I tried my best to become Wu Yan's follower and followed her into that space once. I saw Qing Yang with my own eyes, but I didn't dare to act rashly at that time. Bing Yao explained with certainty. However, when he found the right time and entered the place again, he was discovered by the cautious and suspicious Wu Chun. After that, he was injured and ran away. Since we can confirm that Qing Yang is there, we have to think of a way to save him as soon as possible. Ao Jie quickly said after hearing what Bing Yao said. "Save my ass. Can you defeat Rhyme?" Hearing Ao Jie's words, Song, who had been pretending to be asleep, opened his eyes unhappily and said coldly, Don't I still have you? You'll help us, right?" Ao Jie was stunned by Song's words. He took a deep breath and said, "I won't help you. Don't think that you're invincible just because you're a reverent god. If you want to die, go ahead, but don't drag my girl down with you." Azure said unhappily. In his heart, as long as Lung Ruashua didn't send herself to her death, he didn't care about the lives of others. Uncle Long and the others were depressed when they heard Song's words. Woo, this vicious guy. Must he be so direct? Furthermore, the person they were trying to save was Shui Air's senior brother. Could it be that this senior wasn't even going to give face to Shui? When evildoer heard Song's words, he raged, "Damn it, Shui is my girl, not yours." "Oh, really? This girl is my future master, so she's mine," Azure said matter-of-factly. Was this the main point? The crowd looked on helplessly as they argued over Lung Ruakshu's ownership. They were clearly talking about Qin Yang. Couldn't these two be more serious? However, these two guys were obviously not someone they could control. The one who wanted to control them was Shui Er. At the thought of this, everyone's gaze turned towards Lung Ruashue. Lung Ruashue coughed awkwardly before she said calmly, "Stop arguing. I belong to myself." Shui Er. "No." Upon hearing this, the man and the beast stared at Lung Ruashue with tears in their eyes. Their dark, diamond-like eyes were filled with grievance. Right now, the two of them looked like little puppies that had been abandoned by their owners. They were as pitiful as they could get. When everyone saw this, they were all confused. Did he have to be like this? Their little hearts trembled uncontrollably, and the way they looked at Lung Ruakshu turned resentful. It made Lung Ruakshu's hair stand on end, and her body was covered in a cold chill. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.